Chapter 2874, Descending upon Ancient Rock City Orc Empire, Ancient Rock City. The walls of Ancient Rock City were over 50 meters tall. Despite numerous foe saint monsters roaming the barren land outside the city walls, the Tier 3 players patrolling atop the walls completely disregarded these monsters as if they did not exist. Surprisingly, the foe saint monsters that most of the Eastern Continent's players regarded as a nightmare showed no intentions of attacking Ancient Rock City. They behaved like scarecrows under the city walls. At this time, a merchant caravan, composed of over 100 players and over a dozen horse-drawn carriages, slowly approached Ancient Rock City from a distance. Despite catching sight of these players, the countless foe saint monsters roaming the barren land outside Ancient Rock City behaved as if they did not see this caravan. Looking at the level 120 foe saint monsters around him, a level 136, Tier 3 swordsman escorting the caravan exclaimed, "The Sacred Heart Amulet Saint's hand sold us is amazing. Those mythic foe saint monsters ignore us even when we're only 30 yards away from them." Even NPCs were helpless against the foe saint monsters running rampant in the many neighboring kingdoms and the Black Dragon Empire. The danger made it increasingly difficult for merchant caravans to make money. However, so long as a caravan carried a Sacred Heart Amulet, it could avoid the foe saint monsters' attacks altogether. At the swordsman's words, the level 137, Tier 3 Guardian Knight sitting at the head of the caravan looked at the Sacred Heart Amulet in his hand. With a hint of ambition in his eyes, he said, "I know, right? We must buy some more of these Sacred Heart Amulets in Ancient Rock City. We can make a fortune reselling them in the neighboring kingdoms and empires." The Sacred Heart Amulet was a non-bag space item. Although players could wear it on their person, they couldn't store it in their bags. It also couldn't be transported by teleportation. However, Saint's Hand sold the Sacred Heart Amulet only in Ancient Rock City. None of Saint's Hand's other residences sold it. Many merchant players and adventurer teams had realized that they could make a fortune by purchasing the Sacred Heart Amulets in bulk from Ancient Rock City and reselling them in the neighboring kingdoms and empires. Nowadays, many foe saint monsters roamed the territories of the neighboring kingdoms and the Black Dragon Empire. Leaving the safety of towns and cities would expose players to not only the standard monsters but also a large number of foe saint monsters. The Sacred Heart Amulet could mitigate the danger. More importantly, the Sacred Heart Amulet was a consumable, so it was always in high demand in the neighboring kingdoms and the Black Dragon Empire. Selling these amulets in these countries wouldn't be a problem. The main reason their Fighting Tiger adventurer team had invested a considerable fortune into hiring more than a dozen advanced carriages was to make an even bigger fortune off these amulets. At this time, a level 136, Tier 3 female ranger standing atop the leading carriage pointed at a distant silhouette and shouted, "Commander, we're almost at Ancient Rock City." "Okay. Everyone, get yourselves ready, newbies especially. Ancient Rock City is different from other guild cities," the leading Guardian Knight shouted through the team chat. "Although the city prohibits fighting, it is still a bona fide dark city. There are tons of dark players there, so make sure not to get marked by them. Otherwise, we'll be in a ton of trouble once we leave the city." At the Guardian Knight's words, the team's veterans promptly took out a magic scroll for the Tier 1 Mana Guard spell and used it on themselves. With the Mana Guard active, the common tracking mark would be ineffective against them. Upon seeing this, the newbies to Ancient Rock City also took out the magic scrolls they prepared and used the scrolls on themselves. As the caravan trundled increasingly closer to Ancient Rock City, the newbies couldn't help gasping in shock at their first sight of the towering stronghold. Ancient Rock City was undoubtedly the most spectacular guild city they had ever seen in their careers in God's domain. Not only did the city have walls over 50 meters tall guarding it, but it covered an area rivaling NPC main cities. Most importantly, two 30-meter-tall foe saint monsters flanked the city's entrance. The two monsters wore steel plate armor, and each carried two gigantic swords. If one inspected these two monsters with an identification skill, one would find that they were level 160 superior mythic-ranked foe saint slayers. The aura of these two foe saint slayers sent involuntary shudders through all the players entering Ancient Rock City. Just by standing there, the two superior mythics made everyone feel as if their souls would get devoured. Besides the two foe saint slayers standing guard, more than 30 evil dark dragons wheeled in the sky above ancient rock city. These 50-meter-long evil dark dragons radiated auras close to rivaling the superior mythic-ranked foe saint slayers. When the Fighting Tiger adventurer team arrived before the city gate, the members spotted a long line of players and NPCs waiting to enter the city. Many of these NPCs exuded dense bloodlust, which proved that they roamed the dark side of God's domain. At this time, however, even Tier 4 NPCs were obediently waiting in line. Amazing! There are so many Tier 4 monsters and NPCs here. Even a kingdom's capital city isn't comparable to this place, the first-time visitors among Fighting Tiger exclaimed. Of course. Ancient Rock City is Saint's Hand's main headquarters. Moreover, the city has already become a mecca for the dark forces operating in the neighboring kingdoms and the Black Dragon Empire. If we include the city's defensive structures, even the outer world forces will have difficulty taking down Ancient Rock City. Now, many well-known and top adventurer teams are developing here, the leading Guardian Knight explained. From what I heard, the superpower Miracle has also dispatched many experts to garrison Ancient Rock City. Ancient Rock City is the safest city in the Orc Empire. Nobody will dare target it. The Saint's Hand member conducting inspections nearby overheard the Guardian Knight's words and couldn't help putting on a prideful expression. Currently, Ancient Rock City was only one step away from becoming a main city. Its combat power far exceeded that of guild cities of the various superpowers. Had Saint's Hand not been wary of the outer world's NPC forces, it would have long since flattened the neighboring kingdoms in the Black Dragon Empire, becoming an existence surpassing the 5 great super guilds. However, as the Fighting Tiger adventurer team was undergoing inspection, a gigantic figure suddenly approached Ancient Rock City from the distant sky. Its speed was as fast as a mighty gale, and it stopped only after arriving in front of the city. The steel behemoth over 100 meters long hung in the sky roughly 400 yards from Ancient Rock City, overlooking the entire city. Several dozen players stood on this steel behemoth. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. At this steel behemoth's appearance, the entire Ancient Rock City went into an uproar. It's the Crimson Dragon flying ship. That's Zero Wing's flying ship. Quick, look. Isn't that Black Flame? Nowadays, almost everybody in God's domain was familiar with the Crimson Dragon flying ship. After all, this thing had long since become Zero Wing's signature. Zero Wing was even using some of these flying ships to transport cargo across the sea, to the envy of many superpowers. However, Zero Wing's sudden visit to Ancient Rock City confused many of the city's players. Meanwhile, upon spotting the Crimson Dragon flying ship, the evil dark dragons patrolling the city's airspace let loose deafening roars. The two foe saint slayers standing guard by the city's entrance also raised their heads and gripped their weapons, going on full alert against the flying ship. As everyone in Ancient Rock City fell into panic and confusion, Feng looked down at the city below from aboard the Crimson Dragon flying ship and shouted, 5 minutes. I will give you 5 minutes to withdraw from the city if you do not wish to get dragged into Saint's Hand's problem. Anyone who doesn't withdraw after 5 minutes will disappear from God's domain together with Ancient Rock City. Chapter 2875, Ancient Rock City in Peril. Is Zero Wing planning to attack the city? This is crazy. Zero Wing must have lost its mind. How dare they attack Ancient Rock City? Inevitably, Ancient Rock City's inhabitants doubted Feng's declaration, with many of them considering it a joke. Saint's Hand had continuously strengthened Ancient Rock City. Currently, the city's defenses were superior to those of other guild cities, and the combatants stationed within the city were more than enough to instill fear in the various superpowers. Not to mention, the dark forces of over a dozen countries gathered in the city. Apart from dark guilds, there were also plenty of NPC forces among these dark forces. These forces had paid a considerable price to settle in Ancient Rock City and even treated the city as their base of operations. Anyone who dared to attack Ancient Rock City would make an enemy of these dark forces. Be it dark guilds or dark NPC forces, every one of them had at least 2 or 3 Tier 4 combatants under their command. Moreover, Miracle had recently garrisoned the city, so there should be close to 200 Tier 4 combatants defending Ancient Rock City right now. One could conquer an entire kingdom with that many Tier 4 combatants. Most importantly, Ancient Rock City was currently an advanced guild city, only one step away from becoming a main guild city. Ancient Rock City's resident players weren't the only ones shocked by this situation. Beast Emperor, who was conducting research in the city lord's mansion, inadvertently crushed the research instrument he held when he received news of Zero Wing's sudden arrival. Black Flame, how bold of you. It seems you've gotten arrogant while I was lying low. Beast Emperor growled with a cold glint in his eyes. Lord Beast Emperor, Black Flame is rumored to have reached Tier 5 already. Should we notify the Sacred Envoy, the level 152, Tier 4 Berserker, who had made the report, asked. News of Feng's promotion to Tier 5 had long since reached the ears of God's domain's various powers. Meanwhile, a Tier 5 player was in existence. Even Saint's Hand had to be wary putting away the tools on his table. Beast Emperor glanced at Saint's Hand's guild leader, Furious Fist, and smiled lightly. No need. Call for some people and come along with me. I want to see what exactly gives Black Flame the confidence to act arrogantly in my ancient rock city. After saying so, Beast Emperor turned around and left. A robust man with black skin covered in flashing runes, who stood guard before the research room, silently trailed him. Yes, sir. Furious Fist hurriedly followed after the robust man. Less than 3 minutes after Feng's declaration, many players and adventurer teams, afraid of trouble, had already withdrawn from Ancient Rock City. Only dark players and a few courageous normal players chose to remain. At the same time, players from the various dark adventurer teams and dark guilds also gathered at Ancient Rock City's entrance, one after another, and watched the fleeing players. These cowards. Zero Wing sent only a few dozen players, yet these people are already running away. Zero Wing is famous, after all. It's normal for them to run away. Not to mention, Black Flame is also here. It'd be strange for them not to escape. These people are simply idiots. Zero Wing won its past battles only because of the powerful defenses of its cities. That's right. So what if Zero Wing managed to produce a Tier 5 player? We'll teach these guys what it means to offend us dark forces. The dark players revealed expressions of rage and excitement as they looked up at the Crimson Dragon flying ship. Zero Wing's reputation was through the roof right now. Moreover, Feng had gotten promoted to Tier 5. Hence, players were starting to consider Zero Wing God's domain's #1 guild. If a battle were to occur in the outside world, dark players like themselves would indeed be afraid of Feng. However, it was a different story if the battle took place inside Ancient Rock City. With the city's magic array, they could still take him on with the many Tier 4 players they had. Not to mention, a large number of Faux Saint monsters protected Ancient Rock City, including 2 superior mythic-ranked Faux Saint slayers. Even if they couldn't kill Feng, they could, at least, make the other members of Zero Wing suffer. As the 5-minute limit approached, the number of players retreating from Ancient Rock City also increased. At this time, the players that had withdrawn from Ancient Rock City suddenly felt a chill envelop their bodies. Even Tier 3 experts found themselves partially kneeling on the ground. The next moment, a group of 40 players flew out from the City Lord's mansion. Apart from Furious Fist and Saint's Hand's Tier 4 executives, 17 players on the team were people that none of Ancient Rock City's inhabitants had ever seen before. These 17 players looked nothing like humans. Not only were their bodies pitch black, but there were also flashing runes engraved all over their bodies. These players' auras were also stronger than even that of superior mythic monsters. When combined, their auras transformed into a tsunami that swept through the entire city and its surroundings. Amazing! Is this Saint's Hand's rumored bloodstained Night Legion? That's not all. Even Beast Emperor left the City Lord's mansion. It seems we'll have a good show this time. Indeed. I heard that Beast Emperor has constantly been plotting revenge on Zero Wing after getting slaughtered at the Secret Covenant Tower. Now that Zero Wing has come knocking on his door, there's no way Beast Emperor will spare Zero Wing. The various major powers experts standing atop the city walls were surprised when they saw Beast Emperor and the Bloodstained Knights making an appearance. At the same time, they were shocked by the power Saint's Hand displayed. The superpowers on the eastern continent had always been fearful of Saint's Hand, and this situation greatly confused the various major powers. However, after seeing Saint's Hand's top combatants, they realized that the superpowers' fear of Saint's Hand wasn't without basis. Setting aside the fact that Saint's Hand had over 20 tier 4 experts at the Void Realm or above, just the 17 rumored Bloodstained Knights were more than enough to instill fear into any player force. After all, even a tier 4 player would tremble in fear if they had to go up against a Bloodstained Knight, let alone 17 Bloodstained Knights simultaneously. That would be a nightmare. Shortly afterward, Beast Emperor's group arrived above the city gate. Seeing this, the various powers' leadership promptly stepped forward to greet Beast Emperor. 1,000 Miles, one of Miracle's Vice Guild leaders, was even among them. 1,000 Miles' actions astonished the various major powers present. They never thought that even a superpower like Miracle would defer to Beast Emperor. After Beast Emperor responded to a few greetings, he flew into the air with his subordinates and glared at Feng on the Crimson Dragon flying ship. He then said coldly, "Black Flame. You and I could have stayed out of each other's way in the Orc Empire, yet you chose to come to attack me. So long as you apologize right now, I can ignore this transgression for the time being. Otherwise, none of you will be returning alive today." After Beast Emperor finished speaking, a frightening amount of evil energy erupted from the 17 Bloodstained Knights behind him, distorting the surrounding space and muddying it. The terrifying power within the evil energy made even those who had fled more than 1,000 yards from the city tremble. Moreover, the two foe Saint Slayers had flown to flank the Crimson Dragon flying ship, while the 30+ evil Dark Dragons had surrounded it, thoroughly sealing off all of Zero Wing's escape routes. The fleeing players gasped at this scene. With such a force under Saint's Hand's command, the guild could take on even an empire. Damn it. I thought Saint's Hand was going to suffer this time, but it seems I miscalculated. Zero Wing has always relied on Black Flame to survive. Now, it seems Zero Wing has finally met its match. If this situation isn't handled properly, apart from Black Flame, the other Zero Wing members present probably won't leave alive. At this time, even a fool could tell how powerful Saint's Hand's forces were. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that even an NPC force with a tier 5 combatant under its command wouldn't dare to offend Saint's Hand casually, let alone Zero Wing. Apologize? Feng laughed. Beast Emperor, it seems you're growing senile. Have you forgotten how you died at my hands last time? Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. You bastard. Feng's words enraged Beast Emperor. However, before Beast Emperor could say anything more, mana exploded from Feng's body. Immediately, an indescribably heavy pressure descended on the entire ancient rock city. World creation. The next moment, Beast Emperor and the others plummeted to the ground one after another. Even the tier 4 experts standing on the city walls found themselves on one knee under the strong pressure. Chapter 2876, Shock. Impossible. Every player inside Ancient Rock City nearly had their eyes fall out of their sockets when they saw Beast Emperor and the other tier 45 plummeting to the ground. Even the Zero Wing members present were stunned. This scene thoroughly exceeded their imagination. In the current God's domain, tier 4 players were already considered peak combatants and displayed a guild's foundation. Yet, under Feng's mana domain, Beast Emperor and the other tier 4 combatants on his side could exhibit only 20% or so of their usual combat power. They even lost their ability to fly and manipulate ambient mana. In the blink of an eye, these existences that originally stood at the peak of God's domain had become no different from tier 3 players. At this time, let alone a tier 5 player like Feng, even Tier 4 experts could slaughter Ancient Rock City's defenders. This is the strength of Tier 5s. When the players who had evacuated Ancient Rock City looked at Feng hovering proudly above the city, an indescribable sense of shock and horror filled their hearts. As veteran players of God's domain, they knew that a significant difference existed between tiers. They also knew that a Tier 5 player undoubtedly stood at the apex of all players in the current God's domain. However, only after witnessing the power of a Tier 5 player did they understand how large the gap between Tier 4 and Tier 5 was. In front of a Tier 5 existence, Tier 4 players would only be making fools of themselves if they tried to win by Zerg tactics. The Tier 4 monsters among Ancient Rock City's defenders, though, weren't as badly off as the Tier 4 players. Because monsters mainly relied on their basic attributes and rarely manipulated the ambient mana to do combat, their penalty was not as large as the Tier 4 players. Regardless, the mythic-ranked evil dark dragons still had their combat power reduced by half, whereas the superior mythic-ranked foe Saint Slayers had theirs reduced by 30%. Moreover, all of them lost their ability to fly. Against Tier 4 players capable of flight, they would be at a significant disadvantage. Unlike everyone else, Feng wasn't surprised at the scene before him. Everyone failed to understand that his mana domain was different from the average mana domain. Existences at the world creation standard could create a small world within their mana domains. The power of such a mana domain was on an entirely different level compared to the average mana domain. Even a Tier 5 existence would be at a disadvantage if they got caught within a Tier 5 world creation expert's mana domain without any countermeasures, let alone Tier 4 players and monsters. Meanwhile, after experiencing this unexpected turn of events, a hint of fear had surfaced in Beast Emperor's eyes. Despite this situation, he still sneered, "Black Flame, don't get too delighted just yet. Don't forget that this is Ancient Rock City." As soon as Beast Emperor finished speaking, an enormous, threefold magic array manifested from the City Lord's mansion. After the magic array gathered mana from the surroundings for a brief moment, it released pulses of mana that enveloped the city. Immediately, the city defenders felt the heavy pressure on their bodies disappear. Now, although Feng's mana domain still subjected everyone to a certain degree of suppression, their combat power had recovered to 80% of their usual. More importantly, they had also regained their ability to fly. Feng was slightly surprised when he looked at the barrier enveloping Ancient Rock City. What a powerful barrier. It seems you've invested quite a lot into this city. His mana domain could render even master magic barriers useless. One would need to use at least a Grandmaster magic barrier to contend with his mana domain. Meanwhile, Grandmaster magic arrays were incredibly rare in God's domain, let alone a Grandmaster magic array that could cover an entire city. The value of every set of scrolls for such a magic array could rival that of fragmented legendary items. Black Flame. Do you think you're the only one with the means to defend cities? Looking at Feng, Beast Emperor sneered, "This is an ancient Grandmaster magic array. Although Ancient Rock City hasn't reached the main city level yet, it is no weaker than a main city in terms of defense. Although you're Tier 5, don't even think about taking down Ancient Rock City." A main city's defensive magic array was wholly capable of withstanding Tier 5 attacks. So long as the magic array had a constant energy supply, even Tier 5 existences shouldn't think of penetrating it. Meanwhile, exhausting the energy supply of a main city's defensive magic array wasn't something just one Tier 5 existence could accomplish. One would need several Tier 5 individuals or siege weapons with Tier 5 destructive power to do so. However, Zero Wing only had one Tier 5 combatant now. In other words, breaking through Ancient Rock City's defensive barrier would be nothing but a pipe dream. When Beast Emperor finished speaking, the members of the various powers in Ancient Rock City sighed in relief. They then looked at Feng with sneers on their faces. "Black Flame, so what if you're Tier 5? That's right. What can you do by yourself?" When Feng had extended his mana domain before, everyone within Ancient Rock City had felt strong pressure overwhelming them. Saint's Hand's Tier 4 experts were no exception. However, now that Ancient Rock City had deployed its defensive magic array, even a Tier 5 player like Feng would be helpless against them. Next, all they needed to do was fight a war of attrition, something they did not fear in the slightest. After all, Ancient Rock City had accumulated a massive stockpile of magic crystals from the sales of Sacred Heart amulets. Not to mention, the Outer World's NPC forces would soon begin the second war against the Eastern Continent's native forces. And in this upcoming war, the Outer World forces would set Zero Wing as their primary target. Zero Wing couldn't afford a war of attrition with Ancient Rock City at all. The longer it fought, the worse off it would be in the upcoming war. Guild leader, let's attack the barrier together. I want to see how long it can last against our combined attacks. Fire Dance said, gnashing her teeth as she looked at Ancient Rock City's arrogant residents. That's right. If it spells with Tier 5 power, I can use a few as well. I refuse to believe we can't break this barrier. Zhao Yueru said, nodding in agreement with Fire Dance. 4 other Tier 4 players, exhibiting Tier 5 power would indeed be a challenging task. However, her Frostflame's Wrath was a top-tier fragmented legendary weapon. With it, the Fire and Ice-type Tier 4 spells she cast could exhibit Tier 5 power. No, that won't be necessary, Feng said, shaking his head. Zhao Yueru was a bona fide mobile turret. If he hadn't gotten promoted to Tier 5, she would rank at the very top of Zero Wing in terms of firepower. However, besieging a city was different from attacking monsters. The defenders inside the city could launch attacks to counter Zhao Yueru's spells. The defenders could even target her directly, preventing her from casting her spells altogether. This would drastically reduce Zhao Yueru's ability to damage the defensive magic array. Having only the occasional Tier 5 attack land on the defensive magic array would yield hardly any effect. But we can't just sit still and do nothing, right? Zhao Yueru said in annoyance. Although she knew that she couldn't contribute much, it was still better than nothing. Moreover, if they allowed Saint's Hand to continue behaving so arrogantly, it would deal a massive blow to Zero Wing's morale. After all, Zero Wing had already declared to the public that it would capture Ancient Rock City. Currently, everyone was watching this fight. The various powers absent from this battlefield were no exception. They were all observing every detail of the battlefield and tensely awaiting the outcome of this siege. If Zero Wing won, then the various superpowers would no longer dare entertain thoughts of resisting Zero Wing on the Eastern Continent. However, if Zero Wing returned foiled, many superpowers would begin having designs on Zero Wing. They might even ally with Saint's Hand to deal with Zero Wing. Of course not, Feng said, chuckling. I'm merely saying that you don't need to take action. All you need to do is watch. Just watch. Zhao Yueru looked at Feng in confusion. The guild city in front of them rivaled a main city. How could they possibly capture it just by looking at it? The other Zero Wing members present were also confused, failing to understand what was going through their guild leader's mind. However, Feng did not bother explaining himself. Instead, he flew to an altitude several hundred meters above Ancient Rock City and began chanting an incantation, his chanting causing the surrounding mana to swarm toward him. Upon seeing Feng's actions, Ancient Rock City's defenders laughed. Are you trying to use a Tier 5 large-scale destruction spell? Beast Emperor sneered as he looked at Feng. This is nothing but a futile struggle. Let alone a Tier 5 sword saint like yourself, even a Tier 5 divine mage can't do anything against Ancient Rock City's defensive magic array. Everyone, prepare for battle. Target the flying ship. Beast Emperor ignored Feng's attack, as there was no way weakened Tier 4 attacks could do anything against Feng. However, it was a different story for the Crimson Dragon flying ship. The flying ship wouldn't last long before a barrage of Tier 4 attacks. It would fall quickly even if Zero Wing's Tier 4 experts defended it. The many Tier 4 magical classes atop the city walls promptly began casting their respective spells, while the other Tier 4 ranged classes launched attacks at the flying ship. The 30-plus evil dark dragons took to the skies and bombarded the flying ship. The Zero-Wing members aboard the Crimson Dragon flying ship felt an invisible pressure weighing down their bodies. Upon seeing the oncoming attacks, Fire Dance yelled hurriedly, "Magical classes, deploy defensive magic arrays." Even a Tier 5 legendary monster would suffer if it tried to take on the attacks of more than 100 Tier 4 individuals, let alone Tier 4 players like themselves. Moreover, the Crimson Dragon flying ship only had Tier 4 combat power. However, just as the two sides were about to clash, Feng finished his incantation's final verse. Suddenly, the sky darkened, and a spatial tear spanning over 1,000 yards appeared above ancient Rock City. The spatial tear made it seem as if the sky was about to collapse, inevitably drawing everyone's attention. What is Black Flame trying to do? Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU questions filled everyone's mind as they gazed at the gigantic spatial tear. Simultaneously, everyone felt an inexplicable chill overwhelm their heart. They could sense something terrifying in the spatial tear, and this feeling made even their souls shudder with dread. Before anyone could say anything more, a gigantic claw the size of a 4-story building extended from the spatial tear. Subsequently, a titanic figure gradually emerged from the spatial tear, blotting out the sky completely. When everyone eventually discerned the identity of this figure, they were dumbfounded. A dragon? Chapter 2877, Divine Dragon's Might. A Tier 4 dragon? It's a real Tier 4 dragon. Any veteran of God's domain would have heard of the creatures known as dragons. Ancient Rock City's inhabitants, who were at Tier 3 on average, had an even better understanding of dragons. However, when everyone in Ancient Rock City saw the dragon in the sky, they finally understood how terrifying dragons were. The Tier 4 dragon that had just appeared above Ancient Rock City was around 500 meters long, its massive body blotting out the sun. Its aura covered a radius of several thousand yards, making every Tier 3 player in that area shudder involuntarily. Compared to the Tier 4 evil dark dragons protecting Ancient Rock City, this Tier 4 dragon was akin to a god. This is a fake. This must be a fake. How can a player summon a real Tier 4 dragon? The various powers experts standing atop the city walls revealed expressions of shock and horror. A Tier 4 dragon rivaled Tier 5 existences. Current Tier 4 players couldn't afford to provoke it. Likewise, it shouldn't be something players could control. Nevertheless, Feng had summoned a Tier 4 dragon. How could they believe this? This situation was even more unbelievable and shocking than Feng's promotion to Tier 5. After all, given enough time, a dragon would reach Tier 5 without fail. Meanwhile, a Tier 5 dragon was practically an invincible existence in God's domain. Everyone, don't panic. While a Tier 4 dragon is scary, Ancient Rock City's defensive magic array isn't weak either. Saint's Heart's guild leader, Furious Fist, shouted hurriedly when he saw the panicked defenders. It's just one more Tier 5 combatant. So long as we combine our strengths, Black Flame will still be helpless against us. Furious Fist's words calmed Ancient Rock City's experts somewhat. When they remembered how extraordinary the city's defensive magic array was, they felt that defending against Zero-Wing's assault wouldn't be impossible. However, regardless of this battle's outcome, most likely nobody in God's domain would dare provoke Zero-Wing anymore. Zero-Wing would also officially become God's domain's #1 guild. After all, which player force in God's domain could contend against the combination of a Tier 5 player and a Tier 4 dragon? At this time, some of the dark guilds based in Ancient Rock City started regretting making an enemy of Zero-Wing. While they might escape tragedy today, thanks to Ancient Rock City, what about the future? They couldn't possibly hide in Ancient Rock City forever, right? While the various dark guilds regretted their decisions, Thousand Miles's complexion turned indescribably ashen as he looked at the dragon in the sky. Noticing Thousand Miles's pallidness, Furious Fist asked, "Vice Guild Leader Miles, what's wrong? Is there a problem with that dragon?" No matter how many times Furious Fist inspected the dragon hovering in the sky with his ordinary identification skill, the results said this dragon was the real deal. Moreover, There was no doubt that the dragon was tier 4, and it had reached level 165. However, he couldn't get any further information on the dragon without a higher-ranking identification skill. As a vice guild leader of Miracle, 1000 Miles should have a high-ranking identification skill, so it wouldn't be strange if he managed to see some more information. A look of despair appeared on 1000 Miles's face as he said, "That's not just a dragon. That's a divine dragon. A silver divine dragon." Divine dragon? Furious Fist was stunned. Glaring at 1000 Miles, he demanded, "Brother Miles, you're not joking with me, right? If you are, this joke isn't funny at all." Divine dragons were kings among the dragon race. An ordinary dragon and a divine dragon were as different as an ordinary monster and an archaic species. The two were completely different creations. Turning to Furious Fist, 1000 Miles smiled wryly and said, "I wish that were the case, but do you think I'm joking?" 1000 Miles regretted using his high-ranking identification skill on the dragon. Had he not probed any further, he would have held some hope for victory in his heart. Now, though, no such hope existed. Meanwhile, when the players who had fled Ancient Rock City gazed at the distant silver divine dragon, they were flabbergasted for a long time. Is this why Zero Wing was confident in attacking Ancient Rock City? A divine dragon. I must be dreaming. That's right. This must be a dream. I just reached tier 4, so how could Black Flame have reached tier 5 and gained control over a divine dragon already? This is a dream. Many people began deluding themselves as they looked at the silver divine dragon, none of them willing to face reality. However, Beast Emperor, who stood atop the city gate, had no plans of giving up. Glaring at the divine dragon in the sky, he ranted with a maniacal expression, "Black Flame. So what if you have a divine dragon? My ancient Grandmaster magic array can stop it." The silver divine dragon in the sky suddenly opened its maw before Beast Emperor could continue. The next instant, all mana within a 10,000-yard radius vanished, and everyone within this area felt indescribably stifled. Roar! Accompanied by a deafening roar, a beam of divine light devoured the entire Ancient Rock City. Divine Dragon's Breath. When the dazzling divine light descended upon Ancient Rock City, it forced all players within a radius of several tens of thousands of yards to shield their eyes. The divine light gradually faded away, and only then did everyone open their eyes again to inspect the breath attack's effect. This. How? Impossible. When the players standing several thousand yards from Ancient Rock City saw the city again, they were utterly dumbfounded. The divine dragon's breath didn't just shatter Ancient Rock City's defensive magic array. It had even vaporized the towering city lord's mansion at the center of the city along with almost every player and building in the city. Taking their place was a massive crater that spanned the entire city. Only the tier 4 experts on the city walls who managed to activate their life-saving skills in time and the 2 foe Saint Slayers had survived the attack. Everything inside Ancient Rock City's perimeter wall had been reduced to a wasteland. No. No. This isn't possible. Beast Emperor fell into chaos and madness as he looked at what remained of his city. And he wasn't alone. Furious Fist's mind also stopped working at this cataclysmic scene, his body crumbling powerlessly to the ground. BSCR/B, all of the investments we've made. All of the forces we've gathered. Gone. As if they were nothing but a joke. 1000 Miles, who had also survived the ordeal, was rendered speechless for a long time. One attack. It had taken just one attack for Ancient Rock City, a city rivaling main cities, to disappear. Who could believe this? Zero Wing's members aboard the Crimson Dragon flying ship were similarly stunned by this scene. This was especially true for Ji Luorong and Crimson Mask, who had been active on the Western continent until recently. An indescribable sense of shock filled the two. The Western continent had legends describing the dragon's devastating power and how a single breath attack could destroy entire cities. There were also stories of kingdoms meeting their end because they had angered a dragon. Previously, Ji Luorong and Crimson Mask treated these stories as mere folklore. Now, they finally understood that those stories weren't just legends to embellish God's domain but facts. In reality, even Feng was shocked by this outcome. This is the power of a divine dragon? When Feng saw the ruin before him and Auerbach's nonchalant demeanor, he was momentarily at a loss for words. Feng had seen Tier 6 God-ranked experts single-handedly destroy cities in the past. However, compared to the power displayed by those Tier 6 God-ranked experts, Auerbach's performance gave Feng a much greater shock. This was because Auerbach was only at Tier 4. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Originally, Feng thought that Auerbach's breath attack would, at most, deplete a significant portion of the defensive magic array's energy. Yet, the entire city had disappeared. He couldn't help looking at the crazed Beast Emperor apologetically. He even wanted to tell Beast Emperor that he hadn't done this on purpose. Of course, while Feng pitted Beast Emperor, he did not show the latter any mercy. Unsheathing the abyssal blade, he activated the Tier 4 Darkness Bind, binding Beast Emperor and the other surviving defenders. Now that Ancient Rock City's defensive magic array was no more, Beast Emperor and the others were subject to the full power of Feng's mana domain. Without the ability to manipulate the ambient mana, Beast Emperor and the others were basically Tier 3 players with above-average basic attributes. Hence, they were utterly incapable of resisting Feng and got caught easily. And under the restraint of Darkness Bind, they couldn't die even if they wanted to. After Feng destroyed Ancient Rock City and captured Beast Emperor and the others, news of this battle spread like wildfire across the entire God's domain. Chapter 2878, Ancient Rock City's Secret Fire Dragon Empire, Flame Dragon City, Mythology's Residence. A Tier 3 ranger barged into the meeting room occupied by Mythology's executives, earning the dissatisfaction of Situ Qingtian and the others in the room. Looking at the ranger, Situ Qingtian asked in a displeased tone, "Did something happen?" "It's news of Zero Wing," the ranger said hurriedly. "According to your orders, we've kept tabs on Zero Wing. However, just a moment ago, Zero Wing destroyed Ancient Rock City." Upon hearing the ranger's words, Cold Shadow responded dubiously, "Impossible. It's only been around 10 minutes since Zero Wing arrived at Ancient Rock City. Even if Black Flame is Tier 5, they can't possibly capture the city so quickly. Ancient Rock City was Beast Emperor's base, and the man had long since armed the city to the teeth. Beast Emperor also had the evil god's temple's backing, a powerful existence capable of going against the war god's temple. Although Feng was a Tier 5 player, capturing Ancient Rock City should be tough. No. Vice Guild Leader, Zero Wing didn't capture Ancient Rock City. It razed the entire city in one blow. Ancient Rock City is now a ruin, the ranger countered, shaking his head. He then took out a magic crystal recorder and placed it on the meeting table. "This is the battle video we received." Immediately, the magic crystal recorder projected the image of a dragon. With just one breath attack, this dragon leveled the entire Ancient Rock City, leaving nothing unscathed. A Tier 4 divine dragon. It managed to destroy the entire Ancient Rock City in one hit? Deathly silence enveloped the meeting room momentarily as Mythology's executives stared at the video projection with gloomy expressions. Shock and fear also surfaced in their eyes. Their astonishment was so obvious that even the reporting Tier 3 ranger could sense it. No wonder. No wonder he dared refuse our two guilds' partnership. So this is the reason for his confidence. Cold Shadow looked at the Tier 4 divine dragon and the ruined Ancient Rock City in the video with complicated feelings. Feng had been a minor character unworthy of her attention in the past when Zero Wing was a guild reliant on external items to defend its territories. Yet, both Feng and Zero Wing were now bona fide titans that even Mythology could not and would not dare to offend. What was even more laughable was that just a moment ago, Mythology's executives had been discussing how to take revenge on Zero Wing in secret. Now, however. Black Flame. I indeed underestimated you before. Situ Qingtian's gaze grew cold as he looked at the video projection. Repressing the reluctance in his heart, he uttered slowly, temporarily halt all retaliation against Zero Wing we discussed before. Practically every superpower in God's domain had heard about Feng killing Situ Qingtian in Zero Wing City. As a result, Situ Qingtian's reputation had taken a nosedive. Although Situ Qingtian yearned to take revenge on Zero Wing, he knew full well that doing so right now would be no different from suicide. With the combined strength of a Tier 5 player and such a frightening divine dragon, Zero Wing could destroy every guild city in God's domain. Damn it. Are we going to let Zero Wing go, just like that? A mythology executive complained in a hate-filled voice. Situ Qingtian shook his head. Looking at Feng's projected image, he sneered, of course not. There is only one thing we need to do now, and that is wait. We wait until the start of the Second War. Even if Zero Wing has Black Flame and that divine dragon, it still can't stop the Outer World's advance. Also, start searching ancient ruins for clues to the Tier 5 promotion. Spare no cost at all. We must have our own Tier 5. Although Situ Qingtian did not wish to admit it, the era of Tier 4 was already over. Tier 5 players would rule the future. If mythology did not have its own Tier 5 player, its position as one of the 5 great super guilds would be in danger. Shortly after Situ Qingtian issued his command, the other superpowers of God's domain also issued similar commands. They frantically searched ancient ruins for clues to help their Tier 4 experts get promoted to Tier 5 as quickly as possible while quietly awaiting the arrival of the Second War of Worlds. Meanwhile, inside the Orc Empire's ancient rock city, Fire Dance and the other Tier 4 experts of Zero Wing finally killed the 2 surviving foe Saint Slayers. The deaths of the 2 superior mythic monsters granted everyone a generous amount of EXP, and they all managed to gain at least 1 level. However, compared to the EXP the foe Saint Slayers contributed, Feng was more interested in the pitch-black stones the 2 monsters dropped after death. Previously, whenever players killed mythic-ranked foe Saint monsters, the player who landed the finishing blow would have a dark gray mist invade their body. This gray mist would increase the player's affinity with mana for a lengthy period. This was also why Feng had not taken action against the foe Saint Slayers and had instead allowed Fire Dance and the others to kill the 2 monsters. Yet, the 2 Slayers did not release any mist from their bodies. Instead, they each dropped a fist-sized stone. What dense soul energy! Feng was surprised when he spread his senses across the 2 black stones. When his concentration had reached Tier 5, his soul had also undergone a qualitative improvement. It was akin to his soul liquefying. However, compared to the soul energy in the pitch-black stone, his soul energy was nothing. After all, these 2 stones were solidified soul energy. Guild leader, are those things useful? Kola asked curiously as he looked at the black stones in Feng's hands. More than that. Smiling, Feng said to Zero Wing's members, they're even better than fragmented legendary items. Is there anyone here with concentration at the Tier 4 peak standard? After Zero Wing's members exchanged glances, only Violet Cloud stepped forward. Guild leader, my concentration reached the Tier 4 peak standard recently. However, the 2 vice guild leaders should have reached this standard too. Good. Take this soul stone. Afterward, find a quiet place and eat it. It should increase your concentration standard. If you're lucky, you might even raise it to Tier 5, Feng said as he handed one of the black stones to Violet Cloud. He then said to the others, if anyone else manages to reach the Tier 4 peak standard, you can get this soul stone from me. The other Zero Wing members nodded their heads, none of them objecting to Feng's method of distribution. However, when Beast Emperor, who was restrained in a corner, saw Feng's actions, he dearly wanted to strangle Feng to death. Feng was actually treating the 2 foe Saint Slayers' cores as a snack and letting others eat them. This was simply outrageous. He had fed the 2 foe Saint Slayers the souls of tens of thousands of Tier 3 players to transform their cores into a soul core. So long as he had a soul core, he could create another foe Saint Slayer. Yet, Violet Cloud received one of these soul cores as a snack. Black Flame. You'll pay for this. Beast Emperor bellowed as he glared at Feng. It doesn't matter even if you caught me. The evil god's temple's rise is already a foregone conclusion. At that time, the foe Saint army will devour everyone from Zero Wing. Foregone conclusion? Feng laughed. Looking at the restrained Beast Emperor, he pointed at the ruined Saint's Hand residence in the distance and asked, "Are you talking about that secret land beneath your guild residence?" I don't know what you're talking about. Beast Emperor stammered in a panic. No need to pretend. Do you think Tier 5 is a joke? Feng rolled his eyes at Beast Emperor. While Ancient Rock City's defensive magic array was still active, Feng hadn't been able to sense the secret land's existence. However, with the defensive magic array gone, nothing in Ancient Rock City could hide from his Tier 5 world creation mana domain. Moreover, Feng had already been suspicious about how Beast Emperor had managed to develop Ancient Rock City to its current level. Zero Wing had poured an astronomical amount of resources into developing Stone Forest City and Zero Wing City. Yet, the two cities were still stuck as intermediate cities, far from becoming advanced cities. So, how did Ancient Rock City develop into an advanced city that was close to becoming a main city? Only a fool wouldn't suspect there was a secret behind this achievement. Black Flame. Beast Emperor was momentarily enraged at Feng's ridicule. However, he soon calmed down and said, "So what if you've discovered the evil god's secret land? Do you think you can defend it? Even if you've captured me, I will still spread this information to the entire god's domain. At that time, even the outer world forces will be drawn here. Do you think you can stop all of them?" The evil god's secret land was originally his biggest secret and something he had invested heavily in. This secret land was also why he had gained his current power. Although the evil god's secret land would be of significantly less help to those not belonging to the evil god's temple, the benefits were still enough to drive everyone in God's domain wild. How would I know if I don't try? Suddenly, Feng executed a slash at Furious Fist, instantly killing him. As Furious Fist collapsed reluctantly to the ground and transformed into countless particles of light, two items appeared in his place. Of the two items Furious Fist dropped, one was a piece of epic equipment, while the other was a token. You! Beast Emperor's complexion paled when he saw the token. This token was none other than Ancient Rock City's City Lord's token. With this token, one could take control of Ancient Rock City. Only, Beast Emperor couldn't figure out how Feng knew Furious Fist had held the City Lord's token. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. It seems my luck is good. Feng was a little surprised when he saw the City Lord's token. It dropped on the first kill. Beast Emperor nearly fainted when he heard Feng's words. What Beast Emperor didn't know was that aside from Beast Emperor, everyone else held no value as prisoners in Feng's opinion. Meanwhile, the City Lord's token couldn't be taken out of the city. Otherwise, it would be automatically teleported back to the City Lord's mansion after some time. And with how precious the City Lord's token was, Beast Emperor naturally wouldn't leave it to just anyone. The person holding the token would have to be a Tier 4 guild executive of Saint's Hand at the very least. Hence, if Furious Fist hadn't dropped the City Lord's token, Feng would have killed Saint's Hand's Tier 4 experts one by one until it dropped. The instant Feng picked up the City Lord's token, a system notification rang in his ears. Chapter 2879, Colossal Wealth System. Congratulations. You have obtained Ancient Rock City's City Lord's token. Do you wish to bind the token? Once bound, you will become Ancient Rock City's ruler and obtain full authority over the city. Feng chose to bind the token without hesitation. System, binding in progress. You will have full authority over Ancient Rock City after 4 hours. You should not move beyond 1,000 yards from the city during these 4 hours. If you leave this area or get killed during this time, the binding process will be cancelled, and you may not make another binding attempt for 1 natural day. CES 4 hours? Feng was a little surprised by the notification. Has it reached the main city standard already? When one tried to bind the city lord's token of a guild city, the binding time would depend on the city's rank. Main city-level guild cities normally took 4 to 6 hours to bind. Guild leader, did something happen? Fire Dance asked when she saw Feng's strange expression. It's nothing. I just didn't expect Ancient Rock City to be this special, Feng said, glancing at the raging beast emperor. Smiling, he continued, since we have to wait for 4 hours, let's pay that evil god's secret land a visit. Black Flame, don't get too delighted just yet. It's useless even if you've obtained Ancient Rock City. That secret land isn't a place you can touch. Without my means of entering, you can't obtain anything inside that secret land. Beast Emperor sneered. I'll spread the secret land's entry methods to all your enemies and even those outer world people. At that time, you can only watch as they take all of the secret land's treasures right before your eyes. Zero Wing could indeed better defend itself after acquiring Ancient Rock City. However, Beast Emperor also knew very well that the outer world forces had already deemed Zero Wing an eyesore. Once the outer world's army arrived, neither Star Moon Kingdom nor the Orc Empire would survive. At that time, the outer world forces would snatch the evil god's secret land from Feng, and Feng would be helpless to resist them. However, Feng ignored Beast Emperor and led Zero Wing's members to Saint's Hand's residence. Although Ancient Rock City was now in ruins and Saint's Hand's residence had been leveled, the guild warehouse was situated on the first underground floor, so Saint's Hand's guild warehouse remained intact. After Feng's group took care of the one Tier 4 NPC and several Tier 3 NPCs guarding the warehouse, they gained full access to it. Everyone from Zero Wing salivated when they stepped into Saint's Hand's guild warehouse. The warehouse, which was the size of 2 sports stadiums, was packed with all sorts of items. Gold coins covered the floor, and magic crystals formed numerous mounds. At a glance, they estimated it held at least 3 million gold coins and 4 million magic crystals. This stockpile of magic crystals was only slightly inferior to Zero Wing's. We're rich. Guild leader, we're rich. Fire Dance exclaimed in excitement as she looked around the warehouse. With all these coins and magic crystals, we won't have to worry about upgrading the buildings of our cities anymore. Zero Wing City's public opening had indeed generated a lot of additional income. Unfortunately, the guild's expenditure still exceeded that amount. This was because Zero Wing City's public opening necessitated an increase in the city's security. The city had to recruit many NPC soldiers to fill as many of the 30,000 slots as possible. While Zero Wing could skim on the benefits provided to the hired soldiers by virtue of Zero Wing City being a main city, the cost of employing level 150 plus, Tier 3 NPCs was still high. With everything taken into account, maintaining a Tier 3 NPC cost 5 gold coins. If Zero Wing City filled all 30,000 of its soldier slots with Tier 3 NPCs, the NPC soldiers' daily upkeep alone would total 150,000 gold. Moreover, this still did not include the NPCs' weapons and equipment or the maintenance cost for the Tier 4 NPCs hired. Simply put, Zero Wing's daily expenditure had skyrocketed after Zero Wing City's public opening. At this time, the guild's stockpile of coins was close to empty. Fortunately, thanks to Saint's Hand's contribution, Zero Wing's warehouse would soon be rich again. Seeing Fire Dance's joy, Feng chose to hide the fact that Ancient Rock City's reconstruction would probably eat up all of this money. Zero Wing might even need to provide additional funds. Guild leader, come here quick. There are 7 luminaries crystals here. Blackie said after opening a chest as tall as he was. With glittering eyes, he continued, there are at least 50,000 units here. That's even more than what we have. Before Feng left for the Western continent, he had tasked Blackie with acquiring as many 7 luminaries crystals as possible. Hence, Blackie placed particular importance on the crystals. However, Zero Wing's warehouse currently had only around 30,000 units of 7 luminaries crystal despite his efforts. And if it weren't for Zero Wing having a monopoly over the Arctic Canyon, this amount would be even lower. Yet, Saint's Hand's warehouse had more than 50,000 units of 7 luminaries crystal. That's nothing. Blackie, come over to my spot. I'll let you know what real wealth is, shouted Kola, who stood in another corner of the warehouse, as he pointed at the several hill-sized chests beside him. All of these chests here are full of epic materials or above. From what I can tell, there are at least 300,000 epic materials, 20,000 inferior legendary materials, and 3,000 legendary materials. Everyone, including Feng, was stunned when they heard Kola's words. This was on the level of a kingdom's treasury. Ordinary kingdoms might not even reach this standard. Only high-ranking kingdoms would have so many rare materials. However, upon hearing Kola's words, Beast Emperor, who had been dragged along to the warehouse, turned livid, his eyes becoming bloodshot. He had accumulated these materials by ransacking multiple kingdoms with the Faux Saint army and destroying numerous NPC cities. Yet, all his efforts had ended up benefiting Zero Wing. Afterward, Feng tasked Blackie with sweeping through the warehouse and transporting everything back to the guild warehouse in Zero Wing City. He then brought Fire Dance and the others to a secret room on the second underground floor. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. The secret room was only the size of a basketball court, with a pitch-black door in the middle of it. Upon entering the room, Fire Dance and the others felt an incomparably powerful pressure enveloping their bodies. Fire Dance had unlocked her mana body beyond the 110% completion rate already, yet even she had difficulty walking inside the secret room. After 3 steps, the pressure was so strong that she couldn't move her body. If an ordinary Tier 4 player were to enter this room, they would most likely crumple to the floor, unable to advance even a single step. Ha ha ha. I already said that you people would never be able to touch the evil god's secret land. Beast Emperor laughed when he saw Fire Dance and the others immobilized. He then looked at Feng and taunted, Black Flame, it's the same even if you're Tier 5. Without my special method, none of you should think of entering. Beast Emperor had reached the peak of Tier 4 already. He also had the benefit of being an evil god worshipper. Nevertheless, he still struggled to enter the evil god's secret land. This was why Beast Emperor was confident that Feng would be helpless against the evil god's secret land even though he had discovered its existence. Is that so? Feng stepped into the secret room after glancing at the laughing Beast Emperor. Chapter 2880, God Mode's Secret Land, What Bold Words. I want to see just how far you can go. Beast Emperor watched with ridicule and complacency as Feng entered the secret room. He was fully confident that the evil god's secret land would repel Feng. However, after Feng entered the room, 1 step. 2 steps. 3 steps. Apparently unhindered by the oppression the pitch-black door exerted, Feng advanced 20 steps without stopping. He showed no signs of discomfort whatsoever. It was as if the pressure that rendered even experts at the peak of Tier 4 helpless was nothing to him. Confusion flooded Beast Emperor's heart as he looked at Feng. What's going on? When Feng arrived before the pitch-black door, let alone Beast Emperor, even Fire Dance and the others were stunned. How did you do it, guild leader? Fire Dance asked, unable to contain her curiosity. The intensity of the pressure she felt from the secret room was unprecedented. Even the divine might she experienced in Light-Forged City could not compare. After taking 3 steps into the room, she could no longer advance by even another inch. She couldn't even lift her feet. While Tier 5 players were indeed stronger than Tier 4 players, the disparity shouldn't be so significant. Logically, there was no way Feng would remain unaffected by the room's oppression. At Fire Dance's question, the other Zero Wing members also looked at Feng curiously. How did I do it? Seeing everyone's curious expressions, Feng smiled faintly and said, I just walked here, of course. However, I did use a little technique. Technique? The Zero Wing members were momentarily stunned. They hadn't seen anything peculiar about Shi Feng's gait. He had merely walked to the door in a normal fashion. Moreover, how could a technique completely mitigate such terrifying pressure? However, when Beast Emperor heard Shi Feng's words, he stared at the latter as if he had just seen a ghost. No. Impossible. Who are you? How can you know such a technique? There was indeed a trick to approaching the pitch-black door. However, Beast Emperor had never told anyone this trick. He was the only player in God's domain who knew it. Moreover, even if one knew the trick, one still couldn't approach the door without the evil god's blessing. Shi Feng couldn't help rolling his eyes at Beast Emperor. The technique required to approach this door is indeed complicated, but do you think the fundamental technique to manipulate the various elements of mana is unique to the evil god's temple? When Shi Feng saw the pitch-black door and the hurdle fire dance and the others faced after entering the secret room, he quickly noticed a similarity between the secret room and the Dragon Temple's trial area. In the Dragon Temple's trial, players had to construct a bridge using mana's various elements. The secret room, on the other hand, was filled with chaotic mana. The closer to the pitch-black door, the more chaotic the ambient mana was. What players needed to do was return this chaotic mana to its original state. Only by doing so could players approach the door. Simply put, both places tested players' usage of the various elements of mana. For Shi Feng, who had already mastered the basic usage of the various elements of mana, approaching the pitch-black door was a walk in the park. It was much easier than the trial in the Dragon Temple, which had required him to expend a lot of concentration and manipulate a significant amount of mana. The secret room, on the other hand, did not put a burden on his concentration or require him to manipulate a lot of mana. The secret land aside, this room is quite a good training spot for those seeking to learn the basic usage of the various elements of mana. Scrutinizing the secret room, Shi Feng said happily, I was worrying about how to help everyone accomplish this, so this saves me a lot of time. It wasn't easy to learn to manipulate the various elements of mana independently. Even if he provided Zero Wings members with an explanation, the learning process would be highly inefficient without a reference. They could be taking a dead end for all they knew. The secret room just so happened to provide players with an environment for testing their application of the various elements of mana. It was undoubtedly a precious training ground. One would also have an easier time getting promoted to Tier 5 if they trained here, as having the ability to manipulate the individual elements of mana was crucial in constructing a Tier 5 mana body. When Beast Emperor heard Shi Feng's words, he promptly fainted. Ignoring the unconscious Beast Emperor, Shi Feng set his sights on the pitch-black door. The door was 5 meters tall and 2 meters wide, made of a material Shi Feng didn't recognize. When he opened the door, a pitch-black whirlpool greeted him. The vortex exuded divine might, and players at Tier 4 or below shouldn't even think of setting foot into this whirlpool. After Shi Feng inspected the whirlpool with omniscient eyes, a few lines of information appeared before him. Evil God's Secret Land, God Mode Secret Land Raid Level 150 to 200. What a powerful secret land. The displayed information astonished Shi Feng. Now, he understood why Beast Emperor was confident he couldn't obtain the Evil God's Secret Land. Secret lands were like dungeons in God's domain. The higher their ranking, the higher their raid difficulty. God Mode was the highest difficulty for secret lands. Unlike dungeons, though, secret lands would not reset. According to Shi Feng's memories, there were less than 10 level 150 plus God Mode secret lands in the entire God's domain. Meanwhile, even Tier 6 God-ranked experts could fall in a level 150 plus God Mode secret land. However, countless player forces would seek to enter a level 150 plus God Mode secret land. It was also a place all Tier 5 players had to enter. This was because these secret lands held clues to the Tier 6 promotion. Which player who had climbed to Tier 5 wouldn't wish to advance further and reach Tier 6? Hence, God's domain's various forces would fight over any level 150 plus, God Mode secret land that appeared. It seems I'll now have to defend ancient Rock City, no matter what. Shi Feng sighed as he looked at the evil God's secret land. Due to the Outer World Forces invasion, he had intended to defend Ancient Rock City only temporarily. After all, Zero Wing had limited combat power. In its current state, just defending the guild cities it already had from the Outer Worlds player and NPC forces would be difficult. Adding Ancient Rock City to the list would only make things even more difficult for the guild. However, the evil god's secret land was extraordinary. Feng might have ignored it if it were only an Azura mode secret land, but a level 150 plus god mode secret land was something he had to protect at all costs. After all, finding another secret land of such caliber wouldn't be easy, even for him. The entrances of level 150 plus god mode secret lands typically appeared at random locations and existed for only a set period. Thus, none of the superpowers in his previous life had ever managed to occupy a level 150 plus god mode secret land. On the other hand, the entrance to the evil god's secret land in Ancient Rock City was fixed. This increased the entrance's value drastically. Moreover, this evil god's secret land might very well hold the key to Feng's promotion to Tier 6. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. Following this, Zero Wing's logistics members began ransacking Saint's Hand's warehouse, while Feng taught Fire Dance and the others the fundamental technique to manipulate mana's various elements. Like so, 4 hours went by in the blink of an eye, and Feng received a notification. System, congratulations. You have become Ancient Rock City's ruler. Do you wish to reconstruct Ancient Rock City? Reconstruct. Feng said in a determined tone. System, a god mode secret land has been discovered. Do you wish to integrate the secret land with Ancient Rock City? Chapter 2881, Integration, Integrate? Feng grew confused as he read the system notification. This was the first time he had heard of a secret land being integrated with a guild city. He had seen many player forces constructing guild cities on top of precious secret lands in the past. However, even as these guild cities developed, they never received any opportunity to merge with these secret lands directly. For a moment, Feng hesitated. The evil god's secret land was a level 150 plus god mode secret land. If he recklessly merged it with Ancient Rock City and the secret land disappeared, he would suffer a huge loss. However, before Feng could ponder things further, he received another system notification. System, it is detected that you have 3 million magic crystals and 5,007 luminaries crystals on your person. You have fulfilled the conditions to reconstruct Ancient Rock City with the evil god's secret land as the core. Do you wish to integrate the secret land and upgrade the city? Agree. Feng agreed without hesitation when he heard the contents of the notification. There were several holy cities in God's domain, and one of these holy cities had a god mode secret land as its core. The war god's temple had also established its main headquarters in this holy city. Sanctuary. This sacred place was also why all Tier 5 experts sought to visit the top of the world. Sanctuary was the sole ancient city in God's domain that players had verified to hold clues to the Tier 6 promotion. The city was so old that nobody could ascertain its age in this modern day. Rumor had it that any Tier 4 player that entered Sanctuary had a 100% chance of getting promoted to Tier 5. However, what made Sanctuary amazing wasn't the knowledge it stored. Instead, the holy city held complete control over a level 150 plus god mode secret land. Players that gained sufficient authority in the city, even Tier 3 players, could enter the secret land. It was different from the god mode secret lands found in the outside world, where the minimum entry requirement was Tier 4 because of the suppression of divine might. Although great dangers existed in a god mode secret land, they weren't everywhere. Moreover, the environment inside level 150 plus god mode secret lands was different from the outside world, resembling that of ancient times, the era abounding with gods. Hence, entering a god mode secret land was an excellent opportunity even for low-tier players. Now that Ancient Rock City could become another sanctuary, how could Feng possibly turn down this opportunity? After Feng voiced his approval, some of the magic crystals and 7 luminaries crystals he had acquired from Saint's Hand's warehouse vanished from his bag space. Simultaneously, Ancient Rock City shook briefly. Ancient Rock City Region System Announcement: Ancient Rock City will commence with an upgrade. All players within Ancient Rock City will be teleported out of the city in 10 minutes. Players within the city are advised to make the necessary preparations. The system announcement echoed 3 times throughout the region. Subsequently, Feng received a personal system notification. System: Ancient Rock City's upgrade is estimated to take 1 natural day. As you hold Ancient Rock City's City Lord's token, you may not move more than 3,000 yards away from the city. You can also choose to log off and rest. Why is it so long? Feng was rendered speechless by the notification. A guild city's upgrade would typically take only several hours. Nevertheless, Ancient Rock City needed 1 day for its advancement. By the time the city was ready, Beast Emperor would have long since spread the evil god's secret land's information to all of God's domain. And worse, Ancient Rock City would be at its weakest after the reconstruction and upgrade process. Before the system's first major update, guild cities got a grace period whenever they underwent an upgrade. Now, guild cities no longer received that benefit. Players had to defend their cities on their own. If the outer world forces were determined, Ancient Rock City might be greeted with a battle as soon as its reconstruction ended. At this time, Fire Dance looked toward Feng and asked, "Guild leader, we've emptied Saint's Hand's warehouse already. Should we retreat now?" "No, bring Beast Emperor and the other captives back to Silverwing City first," Feng replied, shaking his head. "Also, have Liang Jing gather the necessary manpower in Silverwing City ahead of time. As soon as Ancient Rock City opens, have them garrison the city immediately." "Yes, sir." Upon hearing Feng's words, Fire Dance understood that trouble would accompany Ancient Rock City's promotion. There might even be a big battle awaiting the city. She immediately set out to execute his orders. After Fire Dance left Ancient Rock City, Feng chose to log off and rest. He had been busy with various tasks previously, so he hadn't had a chance to take a break from the game. Now that the system had prohibited him from leaving Ancient Rock City's vicinity, he could use this opportunity to rest up. Yuantian City's upper zone, 6th Southern District. The Fearless Cabin's hatch opened slowly, and Feng climbed out of the gaming cabin. The instant Feng exited the cabin, dizziness assaulted him. He very nearly fell back into the cabin. What's going on? As the world spun before him, Feng felt an indescribable hunger. Confused, he wondered, are my mind and body failing to adapt because I spent too much time in the Dragon Temple? However, Feng dared not ponder on this matter for too long because he knew there was only one thing he needed to do right now: eat. He had experienced this hunger once before, so he knew that his anemic symptoms resulted from his body lacking energy. Fortunately, Feng had prepared for such situations. After Zero Wing partnered with the Boulder Corporation, the latter had given Zero Wing 30 bottles of life potion. Feng had distributed most of them to Zero Wing's executives but kept 5 for himself as a precaution. This situation was precisely when he needed to use those life potions. Feng emptied 2 bottles of life potion in the blink of an eye. However, although the anemic symptoms he suffered eased, his mind and body still lacked energy. Only after downing the 5th bottle did Feng feel himself reviving. "Thank goodness I prepared 5 bottles. I wouldn't have recovered from this predicament with only 4. Feng couldn't help sighing deeply as he looked at the empty bottles in front of him. These 5 bottles of life potion should have lasted him 2 months. Now, he had finished all 5 in one fell swoop. If Mushin and Kuroi found out about this, they would have a heart attack. After all, this was half a year's worth of provisions for them. However, while Feng felt heartache over the consumption, he also felt completely reinvigorated. His physical fitness, mental strength, perception, and physical aspects had undergone tremendous growth. Now, even with both eyes closed, he could still perceive the outline of his room. He could even sense the life force of those in the entire building block if he concentrated. This was simply unbelievable. Could I have become a mental strength master already? This thought occurred to Feng when he detected the life force of others in the building. He couldn't think of any other explanation for this change. Only the rumored mental strength masters might have such an ability. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU at this time, even his view of the world had changed. After Feng immersed himself in this experience for a dozen minutes, he smiled. Although I don't know if I've become a mental strength master or not, with my current standard, I shouldn't have to worry about the mental strength master backing Lu Tiandi. Thinking up to this point, Feng tidied up himself and left his house. He planned to visit the 5 States Corporation's mansion to replenish the resources necessary for both his and Zero Wing's development. Previously, he had been worried about Lu Tiandi's mentor targeting him, so he hadn't dared to venture too far from his residential area. Now that his strength had improved significantly, he naturally didn't have to hold back anymore. He could do his tasks without worry. Chapter 2882, Upper Zone Transaction. When Feng exited his home and looked at the surrounding streets and buildings, a faint smile appeared on his face. How generous. He actually sent over a dozen half-step grandmasters to keep an eye on me. He had been living in the upper zone for quite some time now. After getting more information from Mushin, he more or less understood the general situation in the upper zone. While master-level experts could be found everywhere, experts at the half-step grandmaster level were even in the upper zone. They were the mainstays of the various upper zone organizations. Normally, only the direct successors of a corporation would qualify to have an expert of such caliber accompany them. Typically, only a first-rate corporation operating in the upper zone would have more than a dozen half-step grandmasters under its command. However, Feng did not pay much attention to the experts trailing him. Behaving as if he never noticed them, he made his way toward the mansion area with a smile. Butler that kid clearly noticed us, yet he doesn't seem to care about us for some reason, a black-clad, middle-aged man standing on the rooftop of an apartment said as he looked at Feng's departing back. He then turned to Kue, who stood beside him, and asked, "Does he have some kind of backing?" The Infinity Master Fu Jiuzhong had been thoroughly enraged when he learned of his student Wang Xuanming's expulsion from the upper zone. Afterward, he had requested the elders of the several families in his debt to keep an eye on Feng. And if the opportunity presented itself, they were to get rid of Feng. Naturally, the elders of the requested families were more than willing to sell Fu Jiuzhong this favor. After all, according to their investigations, Feng had no background. He had managed to get into the upper zone only because of the Boulder Corporation's Hong Xingyuan. The only noteworthy thing about him was some achievements in God's domain. In response to the black-clad man's question, Kue shook his head and said, "From what I know, apart from the Boulder Corporation, his only other connection in the upper zone is General Manager Xia. However, her interest in him hasn't reached a level where she is willing to make an enemy of us for his sake. He might be ignoring us now because of the strengthened security around him." "If that's the case, this kid's days are numbered," the middle-aged man said as he looked coldly at Feng's distant figure. In a duel between 2 grandmasters, it would indeed be difficult to decide the match's outcome within a short time. However, their side had 6 half-step Henglian grandmasters and 8 grandmasters. 3 of the 8 grandmasters were even bona fide Henglian grandmasters. If they worked together, even an expert like Wang Xianming would fall quickly and have no opportunity to escape. "In that case, I'll leave the rest to you all, Elder Qi. I will wait here for your good news," Kue said respectfully to the black-clad, middle-aged man. Elder Qi was the elder of a first-rate corporation. Although he could no longer improve due to his old age, he was still a Henglian grandmaster. His strength even surpassed Wang Xuanming slightly. If not for Fu Jiuzhong, Elder Qi wouldn't have paid any attention to the Starline Corporation whatsoever. "No problem. Leave it to us. Once we get an opportunity, we'll cripple him," Elder Qi said as he stroked his beard. "We'll teach this kid that he can't offend just anyone he wants in the upper zone." The upper zone was indeed a safe place, as even mental strength masters wouldn't dare take a life here. Otherwise, the Green God Company would investigate the matter. Even a mental strength master shouldn't think of continuing their days in the upper zone at that time because this was the Green God Company's bottom line. However, teaching someone a lesson or crippling them was a different story. If the Green God Company did not catch the culprit red-handed, it would turn a blind eye to the matter. After all, so long as a person was alive, the Green God Company could let them make a full recovery within a short time with their technology. After saying so, Elder Qi began tailing Feng, together with the other experts. Upper Zone, Mansion District. After strolling in the Mansion District for half an hour, Feng arrived in front of a 3-story mansion that occupied an area equivalent to 4 basketball courts. As expected of the 5 States Corporation. There are only 10 such mansions in this district. Even the Boulder Corporation didn't manage to get one. No wonder Feng dares to compete for one of the middle-layer slots. Feng couldn't help his surprise as he inspected the luxurious mansion before him. He had seen the pricing for such large mansions. Not only did it cost 140 million trade points, but one also had to have 100 million contribution points. While one wouldn't be required to spend the 100 million contribution points, accumulating that many points was an incredibly difficult task. Meanwhile, such large mansions were much better than the average mansion. Apart from offering more space, these mansions also stood closer to the waist of the mountain. In the base layer, they were the closest buildings to the middle layer. Hence, the mysterious energy filling the environment here was much denser than in other places. After Feng took a deep breath here, his mind already felt refreshed. He felt as if he had set foot into paradise on earth. Shortly after Feng pressed the doorbell, the tightly shut metal gate opened, and a person walked out. This person was none other than Zhuolinxiu, Feng's butler. Looking at Feng, Zhuolinxiu asked, "Mr. Shi, may I know what business you have with us today?" "It's about the agreement young Master Han and I made," Feng replied calmly. "As per our agreement, I have come to do business with young Master Han." "Business? Please follow me." Zhuolinxiu nodded and led Feng into the mansion. When Feng entered the mansion, he immediately noticed several young men and women training under an elderly man in the mansion's outdoor training ground. The elderly man wore a martial arts robe. Although he had a head of white hair, the aura he exuded was more powerful than what Feng had sensed from Wang Xianming previously. Upon Feng's arrival, the young men and women turned to look at him curiously, wondering who Feng was for the 5 States Corporation to treat him as a guest. However, after getting berated by their elderly instructor, they promptly focused on their training again. "It seems I really can't underestimate the 5 States Corporation." Feng was surprised when he spread his senses across the mansion. There are 6 Grandmasters and more than 10 half-step Grandmasters in this mansion alone. Even the Boulder Corporation doesn't have this many experts. After guiding Feng to a reception room on the 3rd floor, Zhuolinxiu pushed apart the wooden doors to the room and said, "Mr. Shi, the young master is waiting inside." Feng nodded and walked into the room. He found Feng seated behind a solid wood desk with his eyes closed. Currently, Feng did not exude the slightest bit of aura and felt no different from an ordinary person. Compared to the last time Feng had met him, Feng's aura had changed dramatically. Upon sensing Feng's arrival, Feng opened his eyes. Revealing a faint smile, Feng said, "Brother Shi, I didn't think you would come to find me so soon. I expected you would wait for the last 10 days to get a better price." Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. At this point, Feng's name was already known throughout Yuantian City's upper zone. Not only was he the cause of Wang Xuanming's banishment from the upper zone, but he was even Zero Wing's guild leader. The resources he had on hand tempted many of the corporations participating in this season's contribution competition. If not for Wang Xuanming's teacher, Fu Jiuzhong, many of the corporations based in Yuantian City's upper zone would have long since visited Feng and proposed a partnership. I doubt that will happen. "I know I am not your only source of contribution points, young Master Han. Had I waited until the last moment, I probably would have gotten a lower price instead. You might not even have wanted my points at that time," Feng said. shaking his head. Originally, Feng had indeed considered waiting for a better price. Now, though, he couldn't afford the delay. Zero Wing urgently needed a large amount of resources, especially life potions. The life potion was the perfect drug to improve one's physical fitness. If not for the limitation of physical fitness, Fire Dance, Lei Bao, and several other people in Zero Wing would have long since become neutralizing grandmasters. Brother Shi, you jest. In that case, we'll proceed with the 2-to-1 ratio we previously agreed on. I'll buy however many points you have, Feng said, chuckling. However, Feng shook his head and countered in a determined voice, no, I want a 1-to-1 ratio. Chapter 2883, Overnight Fortune 1-to-1? Feng frowned. Brother Shi, isn't your asking price a little too high? At this time, Feng wasn't the only one dissatisfied. Standing by the door, Zhuolinxiu looked at Feng with a hint of anger and ridicule in his eyes. A 1-to-1 exchange ratio was something no organization operating in Yuantian City's upper zone would accept. Life potions and phantom potions served as an organization's foundation. Their stockpile was also something accumulated over many years. These potions weren't items that one could obtain on a whim. Yet, Feng wanted to purchase these precious potions at a 1-to-1 exchange rate. Did he take the 5 States Corporation for a fool? The 5 States Corporation had many sources for contribution points. Meanwhile, these sources only sought a 2-to-1 ratio. On what basis was Feng asking for a 1-to-1 ratio? Young Master Han, don't be in a hurry to refuse, Feng said, smiling as he looked at Feng's cold expression. A 1-to-1 ratio is a fair price. A fair price? Feng laughed. May I know how you think it is fair, Brother Shi? Because I can guarantee you a slot to enter the middle layer, young Master Han. Feng said confidently. Do you think this is a fair deal now? At Feng's words, Feng's cold expression changed slightly. However, he quickly recollected himself and asked, those are some confident words, Brother Shi. If what you say is true, I can consider a 1-to-1 ratio. May I know what exactly you are counting on to help me? 600,000 contribution points. That, combined with the points you already have, well, I don't know if you can secure first place, getting within the top 3 shouldn't be a problem, right? According to Mushin's information, the top 3 rankers' limit should be around 1 million contribution points. It would be difficult for them to acquire more than this because one could earn only so many contribution points through real-world resources. The only other way these top rankers could acquire more points would be to obtain many 7 luminaries crystals in God's domain. However, 7 luminaries crystals were incredibly precious in God's domain, and even the various superpowers barely had any. Be accurate /beat Feng estimated that acquiring 800,000 contribution points shouldn't be a problem for the 5 States Corporation. If the corporation included his 600,000 points, it could secure one of the top 3 spots with a 100% certainty. When Feng finished speaking, Zhuolinxiu couldn't help staring at Feng in disbelief, his eyes very nearly falling out of their sockets. Each of the 5 States Corporation's point sources could contribute only several tens of thousands of contribution points. After totaling the points from all sources, the corporation should gain around 600,000 contribution points. Not to mention, these sources would not necessarily sell all their points to the 5 States Corporation. After all, the upper zone's various organizations were purchasing contribution points at a high price. The 5 States Corporation would be fortunate if it could acquire 400,000 contribution points in the end. However, if the corporation could gain an additional 600,000 contribution points now, it could secure one of the top 3 spots in the competition. At this time, even Feng was visibly moved. 600,000? He has this much strength? In Feng's opinion, taking out 200,000 contribution points would be plenty impressive already. After all, 7 luminaries crystals were not easy to acquire in God's domain. Feng had even traded some with him already. With 600,000 contribution points as his base, Feng could even try to fight for one of the top 3 positions himself. Feng smiled when he saw Feng's reaction. He then asked, "What do you think, young Master Han?" If Feng had 1 million contribution points as his base, all he needed to do next was acquire another 300,000 points or so to solidify his victory. After pondering for a moment, Feng gritted his teeth and said, "That is indeed sufficient qualification. However, a 1-to-1 ratio is still too much. The 5 States Corporation can't take out so many potions in a short time. If converted to trade points, 600,000 contribution points would be worth 60 million trade points. And when converted to life potions, that would be equivalent to 12,000 life potions." This was by no means a trifling amount. Feng didn't find Feng's words surprising either. Instead, he chuckled and said, "If that's the case, how about this? I'll only ask for 2,000 potions. I'll exchange the remainder for a large mansion in the upper zone. What do you think?" I recall that the 5 States Corporation still has the authority to purchase another one. The base layer had only 10 large mansions, and only 8 had owners. After some research, Feng found that these large mansions were excellent accommodations. Not only could they house 40 people easily, but the strange energy in the air was also much denser in these large mansions. This denser energy would be of greater help in stabilizing gentle snow and Aqua Rose's condition. Feng, don't go too far. Zhuo Linqiu blurted angrily. A 1-to-1 ratio is already an astronomical price. Yet, you're asking for a large mansion that's worth 140 million trade points. Do you take the 5 States Corporation for a fool? The value of 10,000 life potions was equivalent to only 50 million trade points, a little more than 1/3 of a large mansion's value. Feng's terms were no different from daylight robbery. My asking price is indeed a little excessive, but purchasing a large mansion doesn't require you to spend contribution points. You only need to have accumulated 100 million contribution points. Meanwhile, not only will my 7 luminaries crystals provide you with contribution points, but they will also provide you with an ample amount of trade points. Exchanging a large mansion for these crystals wouldn't be a loss for your corporation, Feng said. Of course, if your corporation isn't willing to do this transaction, I can find someone else to partner with. I believe the other people competing for the top 3 spots will be interested in my proposal. Zhuo Linqiu was momentarily rendered speechless by Feng. What Feng said was indeed true. Contribution points were far more important than trade points, especially in the middle layer. Moreover, compared to contribution points, trade points were much easier to acquire. That's enough, old Zhuo. Feng shot a glance at his butler, silencing him. He then returned his gaze to Feng and said, "I agree to your offer. However, I will need time to acquire the large mansion. As for the potions, I can give you 1,000 bottles now. I will pay you the remaining 1,000 bottles and the large mansion within the next 5 days. What do you think?" "Sure, I don't have any problem with that." Feng nodded. In Feng's opinion, the 5 days Feng stated were only a ploy. Feng wanted to purchase as many contribution points as possible from his other sources during these 5 days because once news of his acquisition of 600,000 contribution points spread, purchasing points would become much more difficult. Afterward, Feng signed a contract with Feng. According to the agreement, Feng would transfer 60,000 7 luminaries crystals to Feng through God's domain within half a day. At the same time, Feng would pay Feng 1,500 bottles of life potion, 500 bottles of phantom potion, and 1 large mansion in return. With the contract signed, Feng had Zhuo Linqiu pass 100 bottles of life potion to Feng, with the rest to be delivered secretly to Feng's house. After concluding the deal, Feng left the 5 States Corporation's mansion with a crate of life potions. Meanwhile, after Feng left, Zhuo Linqiu turned to Feng and warned quietly, "Young master, your elders will criticize you if they find out you made such an unfavorable deal." "Criticize?" Sending Zhuo Linqiu a glance, Feng sneered, "So long as I get into the middle layer, do you think I'll care about what they have to say?" Everyone living in the base layer wished to enter the middle layer. The environment there far surpassed the base layers. The middle layer was also home to many mental strength masters. If he could befriend even one of these masters, his position within the Five States Corporation would become unshakable. At that time, would he have to care about the criticisms of his elders? Gazing through the window at the distant middle layer with eyes burning with zeal, Feng said, "Head out and purchase contribution points from those organizations immediately. It doesn't matter even if you have to offer them a 1:5 ratio." While Feng was secretly going around purchasing contribution points from various organizations, Feng left the upper zone together with his crate of life potions. Previously, despite receiving the secret pavilions and Netherworld Empire's guild legacies, Zero Wing could afford to nurture only a small number of experts due to its limited resources. However, now that Zero Wing had sufficient life potions, let alone Void Realm experts, the guild could nurture even Domain Realm experts within a short time. This was something even the various superpowers couldn't accomplish. After all, when nurturing new talents, the superpowers would provide only S-rank nutrient fluids at most, not something as precious as the life potion. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. Meanwhile, when Feng left the upper zone, Elder Qi and the others stalking him were stunned. "Is this kid crazy?" a Henglian Grandmaster asked when he saw Feng entering the mental path. "He dares to leave the upper zone at this time? Could it be that he didn't notice us in the first place?" A lanky neutralizing Grandmaster wondered. "There's no way he hasn't noticed us. I am certain on this point," Elder Qi declared. Looking at Feng's distant figure coldly, he continued, "He's looking down on us. Since he's so arrogant, I'll fulfill his wish. Everyone, get ready to take action outside. I want to see what ability this kid has." After saying so, Elder Qi promptly set off after Feng. The other experts followed Elder Qi after briefly exchanging looks with one another. Chapter 2884, Ruthless. Fenglin City, Zero Wing's headquarters. Feng stood in front of Zero Wing's headquarters. The place had undergone significant changes since his last visit. Currently, people crowded the plaza in front of the building, many of them young men and women. These people were either waiting to enter the building or taking various tests out in the plaza. This prosperous sight was even more spectacular than what could be found at the various super guilds' headquarters. As Feng made his way to the entrance, he overheard these young men and women discussing Zero Wing's matters. As they spoke about Zero Wing City's training environment or the heaven-defying battle that had taken place at Ancient Rock City, their eyes glowed with anticipation. Before Feng could reach the entrance, a long-haired man in his 30s approached him. Looking at Feng, who was clad in sportswear, the long-haired man said in a friendly tone, "Friend, you're here to join Zero Wing, right?" "Me? Join Zero Wing?" Feng was stunned by the long-haired man's words. Although the long-haired man looked ordinary, Feng sensed intense life force from him. In terms of physical fitness, the long-haired man could practically rival Henglian masters. However, before Feng could say anything, the long-haired man unzipped his jacket and revealed a six-winged emblem pinned on his t-shirt, proving that he was an internal member of Zero Wing. "I can tell that you're extraordinary at a glance, brother," the long-haired man said while showing off his emblem. He then pointed at the long line of people waiting to enter the building and grinned, saying, "Look at how long that line is. If you grab a ticket and join the line now, it'll take you forever before your turn arrives. However, I'm an internal member of Zero Wing. I have a recommendation slot that lets me help one person bypass the initial test." "What are you trying to say?" Feng asked curiously. "I can see that you're extraordinary, so I plan to recommend you to the guild. However, once you become an internal member of Zero Wing, you'll need to join my team. What do you think?" Looking at Feng with a serious look, the long-haired man said earnestly, "The team I belong to is extraordinary. Although it was established only recently, it has become a second-line team already. It's only one line behind the main force." Feng was at a loss for words. He never imagined such competition existed between Zero Wing's various teams. If he weren't Zero Wing's guild leader, he would have most likely been tempted by the long-haired man's words already. After all, apart from Zero Wing's main force, any other team that had a Tier 4 player leading it would be considered a second-line team. Meanwhile, all second-line teams could raid level 150, 100-man hard-mode team dungeons. What? You don't believe me? Upon seeing Feng's startled expression, the long-haired man said delightedly, "Do you know who my team leader is? You'll get a fright if I tell you." Just when Feng wondered who this strange man's team leader was, the sounds of fighting came from inside the lobby. The din was like a sledgehammer pounding the ground. However, neither the long-haired man nor the other Zero Wing members present showed any concern over these loud sounds, appearing wholly accustomed to them. The newcomers, though, all expressed curiosity and tried sneaking peeks into the lobby. "Ignore that. It's nothing to fuss about," the long-haired man said when he saw the curiosity on Feng's face. He then added nonchalantly, "It's just the experts of another superpower coming to provoke Zero Wing. I believe Master Biyao will take care of them in a moment." Feng asked, "Have there been a lot of such situations happening in Zero Wing lately?" "It's been like this since before I joined. However, it's become much more frequent recently," the long-haired man said as he nodded in frustration. "These superpowers can't bear to see Zero Wing developing. However, as they can't do anything to us in God's domain, they keep coming to our headquarters to make trouble. They keep asking us to sell them Zero Wing City's lands. I heard that the group that came here this time consists of 6 superpowers, one of them the Super Guild Mythology. Mythology's group is even led by the Feng family's young lady. That Feng Shihan really is something. Not only is she beautiful, but she's also frighteningly strong. She can take down master-level experts in practically one hit. I'm afraid only our big sis Fire Dance can take her on." The long-haired man shuddered when he spoke of Feng Shihan. It was evident he feared the latter greatly. After the long-haired man finished speaking, the lobby's door opened abruptly, and a group of people stalked out of the building. These people were representatives of superpowers, and they currently had angry expressions. However, when they looked at Fire Dance and Biyao, who walked out of the building shortly after them, and then looked at the injured master-level experts and one half-step neutralizing grandmaster beside them, they dared not do anything. "Just you wait. Don't think that, just because we are helpless against you in God's domain, you'll be invincible in the real world as well. Zero Wing will only encounter more trouble for refusing to cooperate with us." The various superpowers representatives barked arrogantly at Fire Dance and Biyao, their voices growing complacent as they spoke. While master-level experts might be powerless against Zero Wing, there were bound to be superpowers capable of inviting grandmaster-level experts to move for them. The corporations operating within the upper zone might even take action. After all, Zero Wing was too large a cake to pass on. According to the information the various superpowers had gathered, some forces based in the upper zone were already investigating Zero Wing, evidently interested in the guild. Hence, it was only a matter of time before Grandmaster-level experts came to find trouble with Zero Wing. Fire Dance and Biyao revealed somewhat grim expressions on their faces when they heard the representative's words. They had expected the battle at Ancient Rock City to have caught the attention of many organizations in the upper zone. Hence, they were certain that Grandmaster-level experts would eventually come to Zero Wing seeking trouble. While these Grandmasters might not be capable of doing anything against Zero Wing on the surface, if they came every day to pick a fight, it would ruin Zero Wing's reputation, not to mention the other unscrupulous tactics they could employ. However, when the various superpowers representatives were getting full of themselves, Feng Shihan suddenly left the group and headed toward Feng. The cold gaze she directed at him made the temperature in the surroundings fall by more than 10 degrees. The long-haired man standing beside Feng shuddered in fear despite himself. Looking at Feng, the long-haired man asked, "Friend, did you offend her in some way before? Why do I get the feeling that she's coming for you?" In this situation, the nearby young men also looked at Feng and began a quiet discussion. They all wondered who Feng was to warrant such attention from a great beauty like Feng Shihan. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. I don't think I've done anything to her, Feng said. He likewise found it strange that Feng Shihan was walking to him. After giving the matter some thought, he added, the only things I remember doing are killing one of her elders and telling her to get lost. I don't think I've ever done anything else to her. Feng's words stupefied the long-haired man. He never thought that Feng would be so ruthless as to pull such stunts with the Feng family's lady. It would be strange if Feng Shihan didn't try to take Feng's life. However, when Feng Shihan arrived in front of Feng, she looked at him and asked quietly, "Can I speak with you in private?" Immediately, be it the long-haired man or the other men present, they all couldn't help staring at Feng with wide eyes. What was going on here? Chapter 2885, Sword Saint Black Flame? Feng couldn't help taking a closer look at Feng Shihan when he heard her words. Currently, Feng Shihan looked slightly frilier than the last time he saw her. She also no longer exuded the imposing aura of before, although the ambition in her eyes still burned bright. Just the two of us? Feng stole a glance at the robust Matt and an elderly man standing among the group of superpower representatives. This elderly man possessed a powerful life force. He was absolutely a Grandmaster-level expert. Moreover, judging by how respectfully Matt was behaving around this elderly man, it was easy to guess that the elderly man held an eminent position in mythology. He should be a guild elder at the very least. However, seeing as Feng Shihan was asking for a private conversation, Feng could tell that Feng Shihan had her own thoughts and that these thoughts did not align with mythology's plans. That's right, just the two of us. Feng Shihan nodded, then glanced at the long-haired man beside Feng and smiled sweetly, saying, "Of course, you can bring someone with you. However, it's not my fault if our relationship gets exposed." The long-haired man immediately revealed a look of shock and confusion when he heard Feng Shihan's words. Feng Shihan was the young lady of a major corporation. According to rumor, she was even an upper zone resident. In addition, not only did she possess a divine level of beauty, but she was even a vice-guild leader of mythology. Countless talented young men wished to get close to her but never got the opportunity to do so. She had an air of indifference even when dealing with Zero Wing's big shots like Cola. Nevertheless, she was taking the initiative to seek out Feng. Her friendly behavior with Feng made the long-haired man doubt if she was even the same person as before. Who is this guy? Questions filled the long-haired man's mind as he looked at Feng. However, after snapping out of his daze, he gazed at Feng with anticipation shining in his eyes. Feng Shihan was an individual of high status. If he could get close to her by even a little bit, even if he were only a third wheel, this achievement would earn him bragging rights for the rest of his life. Alright, just the two of us, then. Feng nodded, ignoring the hopeful look the long-haired man was giving him. Feng Shihan was not at all surprised by Feng's response. She pointed at a maglev limousine nearby and said, "Let's talk in my car, then. Nobody will bother us there." Zero Wing's battle at Ancient Rock City had thoroughly shaken God's domain. Zero Wing City's public opening also allowed Zero Wing to rake in tons of wealth and resources every day. The resources earned even included the 7 luminaries crystal that the upper zone's various forces sought to obtain. The city was so tempting that even the 5 great super guilds had designs on it, let alone Feng Shihan. Zero Wing was currently rejecting all partnership offers for Zero Wing City, choosing to monopolize all of the city's benefits. The various superpowers could not get even the smallest cut of this juicy pie. To make matters worse, none of the superpowers could do anything about this situation. However, Feng Shihan was confident she could accomplish what the various superpowers couldn't. With her family's position and resources in the upper zone, she should be able to get Zero Wing to agree to a partnership. After all, Feng was currently in a lot of trouble because he had offended a mental strength master. Although Feng lived in a different upper zone from Fu Jiuzhong, the mental strength master had plenty of means to deal with him. Among the organizations operating within the 3 upper zones based in the country, those capable of protecting Feng numbered very few. The Feng family just so happened to be one of them. When Feng saw the maglev limousine, a hint of envy appeared in his eyes. This limousine was a global limited edition, and it was constructed with a top-tier alloy used for spacecraft. This alloy not only had excellent sound insulation properties but could even withstand missile strikes. He had thought of buying one for Zero Wing but lacked the connection to do so. Nodding, Feng said, "Sure, let's get in the car." "In that case, this way, please, Guild Leader Black Flame." Feng Shihan smiled and took the initiative to lead Feng to the limousine. Her words left the long-haired man stupefied. "He's the Guild Leader?" The long-haired man stared at Feng's back with wide eyes. When he recalled how he had treated Feng like a little brother, he suddenly felt faint. After all, Black Flame's name in God's domain was synonymous with a killing god. He would create rivers of blood because of a disagreement. He had even killed one of mythology's legendary figures without hesitation. The long-haired man wasn't the only one stunned by this revelation. The young men and women in queue also took some time to process this information. "He's Guild Leader Black Flame? No way. He's that sword saint? Don't the rumors say that Guild Leader Black Flame is a man in his 30s? That guy looks no more than 22 or 23. Apart from Zero Wing's executives and a portion of the guild's core members, the only other people who knew Black Flame's actual identity and appearance in the real world were the various superpowers executives. The average player was unaware that Black Flame was only a disguise. You really know how to keep a low profile, Guild Leader Black Flame. Even the internal members of your own guild don't know who you are, Feng Shihan said, smiling when she looked back and saw the long-haired man's pale complexion. That guy will probably lose sleep for the next several days. Feng rolled his eyes at Feng Shihan. Feng Shihan knew that the long-haired man was unaware of his identity as Black Flame and had deliberately revealed his identity to mess with the man. However, when Feng and Feng Shihan were roughly 10 steps from the limousine, Feng suddenly stopped and turned to the crowd in the plaza. "Guild Leader Black Flame? Read latest chapters at Wuxia World." Feng Shihan was a little confused by Feng's actions. She followed Feng's gaze and looked toward the plaza. Although there were well over 1,000 people crowded in the plaza, Feng Shihan faintly sensed killing intent from that direction. Moreover, there wasn't just one source of killing intent but more than a dozen. This killing intent was well hidden. If one weren't a half-step Grandmaster expert or above, one would have difficulty noticing it. This can't be. That side is already taking action? Feng Shifan frowned. Only the Infinity Master Fu Jiuzhong could mobilize so many powerful experts. She whispered to Feng, "Guild Leader Black Flame, they should be experts the Infinity Master sent. The other side has a significant advantage in numbers. It's best if we pretend we didn't notice them and get into the car quickly. Even if it's them, they can't do anything against my car." A force of over a dozen half-step Grandmasters or above was indeed powerful. However, against the global limited edition limousine, even these experts could only lament their lack of strength. This was also why many major corporations wished to purchase this limousine. However, only 100 people in the world actually managed to get their hands on one. "No, there's no need for that," Feng said, shaking his head. He then began walking toward the plaza. "I initially planned to ignore them, but since they came all the way here, I'll deal with them now. It's annoying to have them constantly buzzing me like flies." Chapter 2886, Mental Strength Master. When Feng Shihan saw Feng slowly making his way to the plaza, she was stunned. She never thought Feng would confront the enemy. The enemy had over a dozen half-step Grandmaster experts or better on their side. Among the sources of killing intent she sensed, a few even struck fear into her. Facing so many experts of such caliber, even a Henglian Grandmaster would suffer miserably. This crazy bastard. Feng Shihan gritted her teeth and followed after Shi Feng. She was the Feng family's young lady. Even the upper zone's organizations would have to show her some respect. If she stood up for Shi Feng, the other party wouldn't dare go too far lest they incur the Feng family's wrath. However, before Feng Shihan could catch up to Shi Feng, 14 people in the crowd approached him. They had concealed their auras so well that they looked no different from ordinary pedestrians. None of the people around them paid them any attention. "Kid, since you're so eager to die, I'll grant you your wish," Elder Qi said when he saw that Shi Feng had already walked into the crowd. Sneering, he commanded, "Everyone, attack." If Shi Feng had chosen to remain somewhere with little foot traffic, they would quickly get noticed by others if they took action. However, it was a different story in a crowded location like this plaza. With their standards, they could attack Shi Feng without anyone noticing. By the time the bystanders realized what was going on, they would have long since left the scene. The distance between both sides continuously shortened. 30 meters. 20 meters. 10 meters. When the two sides were less than 3 meters apart, one Henglian Grandmaster, one neutralizing Grandmaster, and 4 half-step Grandmasters began walking straight toward Shi Feng. The 6 experts continued moving like ordinary pedestrians, with the 4 half-step Grandmasters even chatting merrily like close friends. Nobody could tell that these 6 experts were approaching Shi Feng with hostile intentions. When the 4 half-step Grandmasters were within 1 meter of Shi Feng, both the 4 half-step Grandmasters and the 2 true Grandmasters took action simultaneously, so fast that ordinary people couldn't even see their afterimages. The 6 experts launched punches, palm strikes, and claw strikes. Aimed at Shi Feng's vitals, their attacks did not create even the slightest ripple in the air. Although the 6 experts had different strength levels, their coordination was perfect, and they moved as if they were of one body. Feng Shihan's complexion darkened at this scene. If she were in Shi Feng's shoes, she could, at best, stop 2 or 3 attacks. The rest would land on her without fail. It might be a different story if a Henglian Grandmaster received these attacks, but Shi Feng was only a neutralizing Grandmaster. He would most definitely die if he received all these attacks. However, when the 6 experts' attacks were about to land, Shi Feng's body suddenly twitched and moved like flowing water. As if his various body parts had a mind of their own, they instinctively dodged the 6 experts' attacks. Shi Feng's movements were so fine that he dodged some attacks with less than half a centimeter to spare. Biyao/Bia, the 6 experts were startled by this outcome. However, before they could launch another round of attacks, Shi Feng casually scraped his shoulder past one of them and bumped into another. He then executed a punch, an elbow strike, a palm strike, and a kick against his other 4 opponents. The next moment, the 2 Grandmasters and 4 half-step Grandmasters stiffened and stopped moving. They stood still among the crowd like statues. When Shi Feng had walked 3 meters away, the 6 experts' eyes rolled back, and their bodies collapsed to the ground. How is this possible? Feng Shihan's eyes widened, and her jaw dropped at this scene. Of the 6 experts, 2 were bona fide Grandmasters, one of them a Henglian Grandmaster. Yet, Shi Feng had taken care of these experts in the blink of an eye. The fight had ended so quickly that she didn't even see what had happened. She might have been able to accept such an outcome if the 2 Grandmasters were both neutralizing Grandmasters. With internal force, Shi Feng could knock them out instantly when his attacks connected. However, knocking out a Henglian Grandmaster in one hit was an incredibly difficult feat. Otherwise, Henglian Grandmasters wouldn't be renowned as troublesome opponents. Feng Shihan wasn't the only person shocked by this situation. Elder Qi and the other experts similarly tensed up at this scene. Even they were incapable of defeating Henglian Grandmasters in one hit. While Shi Feng might have employed a dirty tactic, there was no denying that he had felled a Henglian Grandmaster in one hit. The remaining experts turned to Elder Qi to seek his opinion on the matter. Elder Qi was their leader this time. He also possessed incredible strength, being slightly stronger than even the well-known Wang Xianming. If Elder Qi chose not to attack now, they naturally did not need to attack either. After all, Feng's display of strength just now had thoroughly stunned them. Feng's feat was even more unbelievable than a person killing an elephant with one punch. Seeing Feng approaching their group, Elder Qi gritted his teeth and advanced. Although Elder Qi didn't know what method Feng employed just now, he was confident he could stop any neutralizing Grandmaster's attack. After all, his mental strength was just a tad short of the mental strength master level. His perception and sixth sense were both much stronger than the average Henglian Grandmasters. All tricks were useless against him. When the other experts saw Elder Qi moving, they quickly followed after him. However, their mentality towards Feng was completely different from before. Now, they had ramped up their vigilance to the max. Elder Qi's group of 8 split up and approached Feng from 8 different directions. They occasionally used the crowd to conceal their bodies and obscure their movements from Feng. However, Feng remained unfazed and continued approaching Elder Qi casually. What arrogance! Do you think I'll fall for your tricks like those fools? Elder Qi accelerated his footsteps when he saw Feng's indifference, not wanting to give Feng any more time to observe and prepare. With 6 Grandmasters in their group of 8, they could give even a mental strength master a headache if they attacked together. After all, a mental strength master's physical fitness was only slightly superior to theirs. What made mental strength masters powerful was their perception of danger and their control over their bodies. However, when Elder Qi was less than 6 meters away from Feng, he suddenly lost sight of Feng. He disappeared. Elder Qi was stunned as he stared at the spot Feng disappeared from. Feng had vanished not only from his vision but also from his perception. Elder Qi and the 7 other experts immediately began looking around frantically, searching for Feng. Several seconds later, Elder Qi suddenly noticed a figure walking past him, and he was stunned once more. Feng? However, before Elder Qi could turn around, he felt a stinging pain in his chest. He then found his body paralyzed, and his vision darkened as if death had come for him. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. When Elder Qi saw Feng disappearing past him, a thought appeared in his mind, and fear surfaced on his face. Mental strength master. Apart from Feng being a mental strength master, Elder Qi couldn't think of any other explanation for this situation. After all, only a mental strength master could evade his perception. However, before Elder Qi could warn the others, he noticed Feng walking past his approaching companions, one after another. Unlike himself, though, his companions didn't even notice Feng. And after Feng passed them, their bodies abruptly stiffened. It was evident that they had suffered a similar fate to his. In the end, Elder Qi could only watch helplessly as his companions collapsed one after another. Chapter 2887, Powerful Mental Strength Master. When Elder Qi and the others collapsed, one after another, in the plaza, they quickly attracted the attention of the surrounding people. The small plaza grew noisy for a time as the passers-by gathered around these collapsed experts and discussed among themselves. Feng exited the crowd in the meantime, his departure going entirely unnoticed. He had practically zero presence, as if he was no different from the roadside trees and bushes. He's a mental strength master? Shock filled Feng Shihan's eyes as she switched her gaze between Feng and Elder Qi's group. She felt like her world had just come crashing down on her. Apart from Feng being a mental strength master, she could think of no other explanation for how he had defeated a force of 8 Grandmasters and 6 half-step Grandmasters so easily. Despite knowing this, Feng Shihan still couldn't bring herself to believe Feng was a mental strength master. Mental strength masters were big shots even in the upper zone, and every one of them lived in the middle layer. Numerous organizations based in the upper zone tried to curry favor with these individuals. All of these powerhouses had reached the level of a mental strength master only in their 30s or later. On the other hand, how old was Feng now? Not to mention, according to Feng Shihan's investigations, when Feng first entered the upper zone several weeks ago, the Green God Company had evaluated his mental strength as special grade only. He had still been a long distance from master grade. When Shi Feng arrived in front of Feng Shihan, she finally snapped out of her daze. She then scrutinized him as if she was meeting him for the first time. Has your mental strength reached the master level already? Feng Shihan asked despite herself. Although she was already certain Shi Feng was a mental strength master, she still couldn't believe that someone could reach this level before 25. If news of this matter spread, it would shake the entire upper zone. Even the Green God Company's executives would take an interest in Shi Feng once they learned of his potential. Meanwhile, the Green God Company's executives were existences even mental strength masters wanted to befriend. These executives helmed the various upper zones, individuals standing at the top of the upper zone. I had the fortune of achieving a breakthrough recently. Shi Feng nodded, not bothering to conceal this fact. He then turned to look at the collapsed experts in the plaza, an indescribable feeling appearing in his heart. Previously, when he had first become a mental strength master, he had noticed that his body's physical fitness had improved significantly. The sharpness of his perception had also become far superior to before. However, only after clashing with Elder Qi and the others did Shi Feng realize how powerful and frightening mental strength masters could be. Mental strength masters might be only slightly superior to Henglian grandmasters in physical fitness, but their control over their bodies reached an incredible level. Not only could they control the fine movements of muscles and the physical body, but they could also exert much greater control over their brains. While in combat, Shi Feng had managed to accelerate his thought processes by more than tenfold. In his eyes, Elder Qi and the others had looked like they were moving in slow motion. After including his enhanced perception of his surroundings, let alone dodging the eyesight and senses of several grandmasters, he could even replicate God's domain's void steps momentarily. It was no wonder the upper zone's various organizations feared mental strength masters so much. Shi Feng also felt fortunate that he had been cautious and stayed indoors for the past few weeks. Otherwise, he might have really ended up in trouble. After all, killing a lone grandmaster-level expert was child's play for a mental strength master. Meanwhile, after Shi Feng's admission, Feng Shihan was momentarily at a loss for words. Originally, she had hoped to acquire a portion of Zero Wing City's resources by offering Shi Feng protection. In doing so, she could increase her authority within mythology and solidify her position as the first vice guild leader. Now, her plan was nothing but a joke. There was no way a mental strength master would fear another mental strength master. More importantly, with how young Shi Feng was, once the Green God Company found out about his achievement, the company would undoubtedly place heavy importance on him. The status he would enjoy at that time would far exceed Fu Jiuzhong's. After all, the Infinity Master was already an old man and showed precious little signs of improvement nowadays. So long as Fu Jiuzhong wasn't a fool, he would give up on revenge against Shi Feng. On the contrary, he might even try to mend his relationship with Shi Feng. After all, the life of mental strength masters in the upper zone's middle layer wasn't as smooth sailing as others thought. Looking at the vacant expression on Feng Shihan's face, Shi Feng asked strangely, "The trouble has been dealt with already. Do you still see a problem in this, Miss Feng?" Feng Shihan recovered from her stupor at Shi Feng's words. Putting away her previous nonchalant attitude, she said respectfully, "You jest, Master Shi. The powers behind those experts will be scared stiff once they hear about your current status and identity. How could they possibly cause you any more problems?" "Is that so?" Shi Feng felt a little awkward when Feng Shihan suddenly spoke to him respectfully. Her passionate gaze, in particular, was as if she had just seen an absolute beauty. It gave him an uncomfortable feeling. "Master Shi, my visit this time isn't for anything significant." After observing Shi Feng a little while longer, Feng Shihan revealed a rare smile and said, "I only wish to partner with Zero Wing on a personal level." "A personal partnership?" Shi Feng wasn't particularly surprised by these words. Calmly, he asked, "May I know what kind of partnership you have in mind?" Taking a deep breath, Feng Shihan said solemnly, "I am willing to invest 100 billion into Zero Wing to help develop all of the guild's necessary facilities and territories." Simultaneously, I can also provide 10 reserve slots for the upper zone and 1,000 bottles of potions of various kinds. I will also bring a large batch of peak experts and over 300 plots of land located in the NPC cities of both the eastern and western continents into Zero Wing. Feng couldn't help being tempted when he heard Feng Shihan's offer. He then asked, "What are your conditions?" Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. The funding aside, just the 1,000 bottles of various potions, the large batch of peak experts, and 300 plots of land were more than enough to elevate Zero Wing's overall strength by a large margin. Zero Wing would instantly surpass ordinary super guilds. It would be a lie to say this offer didn't tempt him. The lands of the Western continent's NPC cities, in particular, were things Zero Wing needed urgently right now. With these lands, Zero Wing could maximize the use of its intercontinental teleportation array. The guild might even be able to establish a solid foothold on the Western continent in one fell swoop. Seeing the interest in Feng's eyes, Feng Shihan replied, "Simple. Become my backer." Feng was slightly stunned as he looked at Feng Shihan, his mind failing to comprehend her words momentarily. What's going on? Oh. Chapter 2888, Zero Wing in an uproar. Feng Shihan couldn't help a smile when she saw Feng's stunned face. She then asked leisurely, "Do my conditions confuse you, Master Shi?" "Indeed, a little." Feng nodded. There was no doubt that the Feng family had extraordinary origins. Moreover, Feng Shihan herself was mythology's first vice-guild leader. No matter how he looked at it, the woman already had a boundless future ahead of her. She was an existence nobody in the outside world dared to offend. He might have become a mental strength master, but the benefits he could bring to Feng Shihan were merely limited to the upper zone's commodities. This was also the main reason the upper zone's various organizations bent over backward for mental strength masters. Apart from these trade commodities, he found it hard to imagine what other help Feng Shihan might need from him. "I believe you should also understand what it means to own wealth beyond one's capabilities, Master Shi." Sighing, Feng Shihan said slowly, "The Feng family used to have a mental strength master. However, along with this master's passing, the Feng family's circumstances in the upper zone have deteriorated. At this point, many of the middle layer's various organizations are even targeting the middle layer reserve slot I own. Hence, I hope you can intervene in this matter for me, Master Shi. If you do, those organizations might back off out of fear." "A reserve slot for the middle layer?" Feng was startled by Feng Shihan's words. The reserve slots for the upper zone's base layer were already incomparably precious, and they were more than enough to tempt the base layer's various organizations. A reserve slot for the middle layer would be even more precious and tempting. Moreover, based on Feng Shihan's words, this reserve slot was transferable. It didn't bind to specific individuals after use. This reserve slot was countless times more precious than the temporary 3-month slots the base layer's organizations competed for in the contribution competitions. It would be strange if the middle layer's organizations were not interested in acquiring this reserve slot. "Master Shi, would you be willing to cooperate?" Feng Shihan asked, a hint of apprehension flashing across her eyes as she looked at Feng. Originally, she had already decided to give up on this reserve slot because she couldn't keep it with mythology's strength. However, an opportunity had presented itself to her now. If she found the help of an ordinary mental strength master, the middle layer's various organizations wouldn't fear her at all. They would still try to snatch her reserve slot without fear. However, it was a different story if the mental strength master were Feng. Feng had become a mental strength master at an unprecedentedly young age. With his potential, the Green God Company was bound to place great importance on him. So long as Feng was willing to stand up for her, she might be able to keep this reserve slot. After Feng gave the matter some thought, he said, "All right, I agree to your conditions. However, I need to add one condition." "Please speak, Master Shi," Feng Shihan responded without hesitation. 100 million trade points. Feng stated. "What are your thoughts on this, Miss Feng?" Apart from the trade points he earned from trading in 7 luminaries crystals to the Green God Company some time ago, he hadn't made any extra points during this period. Meanwhile, apart from life potions, he also needed to spend a lot of trade points while living in the upper zone. This would only increase after he had fired Dance and the others move into the upper zone. His expenditure of trade points would skyrocket if he had to nurture a mansion full of people. Hence, acquiring trade points was a must. 100 million? After pondering the condition, Feng Shihan gritted her teeth and answered, "No problem. I can transfer them to you through my account." Once Feng Shihan agreed to his extra condition, Shi Feng made his way into Zero Wing's headquarters and signed a contract with her, assuring both sides. After signing the contract, Feng Shihan promptly left Zero Wing's headquarters to make the necessary preparations. She acted decisively and carefully on this matter. Inside the maglev limousine heading to the airport. "Vice Guild Leader, do you really intend to follow Shi Feng in the future?" White Feather asked as she looked at Feng Shihan, who had her eyes closed and was deep in thought. "If you leave the guild so abruptly, the guild won't spare you." Although Shi Feng is now a mental strength master, there are significant differences between mental strength masters. He won't necessarily be able to stop all the organizations operating in the middle layer. If he handles things poorly, you'll not only lose your reserve slot but also have to face the guild's retaliation. Mythology was one of the 5 great super guilds. Some of the upper zone organizations that had partnered with the guild because of God's domain had the support of powerful and high-ranking mental strength masters. Feng Shihan was Mythology's first vice guild leader. Her abrupt departure from Mythology would deal a massive blow to the guild's reputation and morale. Mythology would seek revenge for this matter, both in God's domain and in the upper zone. "I don't have a choice. This is my last chance," Feng Shihan replied with a wry smile. "If I continue waiting, I'll lose the reserve slot for sure. Once that happens, I doubt I can get it back, even if a powerful mental strength master stands up for me. I can only pray that Shi Feng is capable of fending off those greedy organizations now." Even mental strength masters had extreme difficulty securing one middle layer reserve slot, and they treated these slots like family heirlooms. After all, these slots could allow a person to live in the middle layer unconditionally. If she couldn't retain this reserve slot, her chances of becoming a mental strength master were practically zero. In the upper zone's history, the people capable of becoming a mental strength master without ever setting foot into the upper zone's middle layer were few and far between. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that 99% of the mental strength masters that had ever walked this world became mental strength masters only after living in the middle layer for some time. While Feng Shihan was making her way back to the upper zone, news of Elder Chi's group getting crippled reached Yuantian City's upper zone, shocking the various organizations based there. None of these organizations ever thought that Shi Feng possessed such frightening strength. He had single-handedly fended off the encirclement of so many Grandmaster-level experts. This unexpected development prompted many organizations looking to sell the Infinity Master a favor to shrink back. "What should we do, young master?" The organizations in Haitian cities and Yuantian cities' upper zones are no longer willing to assist us, Yi Kuei asked worriedly after calling Lu Tiandi. Moreover, now that Shi Feng's prestige has increased, many organizations are considering partnering with him to acquire 7 luminaries crystals from Zero Wing. "I understand. Withdraw from Yuantian City's upper zone for now," Lu Tiandi said, smiling faintly. "Teacher has learned about this situation. He'll most likely personally cripple Shi Feng. All we need to do now is sit back and watch." "Yes, sir." Ikue grew joyful when he heard Lu Tiandi's words. If Fu Jiuzhong personally took action, then everything would be fine. Once Zero Wing no longer had Shi Feng backing it, Starlink would have a much easier time annexing Zero Wing. Fenglin City, Zero Wing Tower, along with Shi Feng's return, excitement filled Zero Wing's members, particularly the experts who had joined Zero Wing only recently. The reason for everyone's excitement was Shi Feng's awarding life potions to Fire Dance and a dozen other core executives in front of all of the guild's internal members. Afterward, he had announced that he would award those internal members who performed excellently with life potions. They even had the opportunity to enter the upper zone. This announcement threw the entire headquarters into an uproar. The upper zone was a dreamland countless people wished to enter. Let alone living in the upper zone, they usually didn't even dare dream of entering the upper zone. This was because the upper zone was a place only a select few organizations in the world could come into contact with. Ordinary civilians like themselves had no chance of entering the upper zone. However, the impossible had now become possible. Guild leader, is this really fine? Fire Dance asked worriedly when she saw the new reward system. In the new reward system, a Tier 4 internal member that successfully raised their mana body's completion rate to 110% would receive 3 bottles of life potion. Afterward, they would receive 1 bottle for every subsequent percent of improvement. If they reached 115%, they would receive another 3 bottles. There was also a reward for concentration standards. After one reached the Tier 4 basic concentration standard, every increase in rank would net them 1 phantom potion, 3 bottles if they reached the Tier 4 peak standard, and 10 bottles if they reached the Tier 5 standard. As for combat standards, internal members would receive 1 life potion if they reached the Void Realm and 3 bottles if they reached the Domain Realm. Most importantly, anyone in the guild who got promoted to Tier 5 would get to live in the upper zone with 100% certainty. Setting aside the upper zone's residency, just the reward of the various potions was already plenty absurd. Others might not understand how precious these potions were, but Fire Dance knew that these potions were available only in limited quantities. Relax. There won't be a problem, Feng said, chuckling. On the contrary, I hope more people can claim the rewards. The life potion was of significant help for improving a person's physical fitness. Meanwhile, if Zero Wing wished to develop quickly, it wouldn't do for the guild to rely solely on him. Zero Wing needed at least several Grandmaster-level experts under its command. Only then would it no longer have to fear the provocation of other forces. Hence, he needed to increase the rewards for Zero Wing's internal members. By doing so, he could also raise the motivation of Zero Wing's members and the chances of producing Void Realm experts and Domain Realm experts. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Moreover, with the life potions he provided, Fire Dance and Master Lei Bao would break through to the Grandmaster level in a few days. This was especially true for Fire Dance, who had already reached the Domain Realm in the realms of refinement and the Ascension Realm in the realms of truth. She only lacked a bit of inspiration and a boost to her brain activity to become a neutralizing Grandmaster. Afterward, Feng discussed the guild's rapid development with Fire Dance and the guild's other executives. Dealing with the Outer World Forces invasion wasn't an easy task. If handled poorly, the guild might lose Silverwing City and Ancient Rock City. One day went by quickly. It's about time I returned to the game. After taking a look at his watch, Feng drank a life potion, lay down in the virtual gaming cabin in his bedroom, and logged into God's domain. Chapter 2889, Astonishing Ancient Rock City Orc Empire, Ancient Rock City. When Feng appeared before Ancient Rock City's entrance, the city had already taken on a new look. It now had much taller walls covered with magic runes. Even though the city's core magic array was currently inactive, the magic runes naturally absorbed mana from the environment and generated a magic barrier. The magic barrier was so powerful that even a Tier 5 existence's full-powered attack might not break it. So long as there was mana within and around the city, this magic barrier would always exist. It would even automatically repair itself for free. Tall buildings had replaced the ruins inside the city, and a thin layer of fog surrounded this forest of buildings. The city's mana density practically rivaled Zero Wing City's already. When Feng took to the skies to get a better view of the city, the sight that greeted him gave him a burst of ecstasy. Did it get automatically promoted to main city? The current Ancient Rock City was slightly larger than even Zero Wing City. What used to be Saint's Hand's residence had been converted into a gigantic City Lord's mansion. The City Lord's mansion was well over 300 meters in height, and glowing divine runes surrounded the building. These divine runes didn't look man-made. Instead, the various elements of mana around the building formed them spontaneously. If players had a sufficiently high perception of the operating principles of mana, they could even learn the essence of the various elements of mana through these naturally occurring divine runes. No wonder cities with secret lands as their cores are of significant help to players in their tier promotions. Just these naturally occurring divine runes can already provide a significant boost to Tier 4 players. When you factor in the environment inside the evil god's secret land as well, a Tier 4 player's chances of getting promoted to Tier 5 here should be 20 to 30% higher than in the outside world. Feng fell into a daze as he looked at the majestic city lord's mansion. While Feng was quietly observing ancient rock city, the number of players around the city continuously increased. When these players laid their eyes on the city, they, too, were stupefied. What had originally been a ruined city was now a magnificent city much larger than even royal capitals. The mana density within the city was at a level where the mana was visible to the naked eye. Coupled with the city's proximity to the Orc Empire's inner region, it made for the perfect resting place for players seeking to raid the Orc capital city. Since more and more people were gathering, Feng promptly entered the city and flew toward the city lord's mansion. Now that cities no longer received protection from the system after undergoing an upgrade, ancient rock city was currently at its weakest. If hostile forces attacked the city now, defending it would be incredibly difficult. Hence, the first thing he needed to do was activate the city lord's mansion's core magic array and generate the city's defensive magic array. Now that ancient rock city had become a main city, so long as its defensive magic array was active and had a sufficient supply of magic crystals, the city could take on even 2 Tier 5 existences without trouble. After Feng entered the city lord's mansion, he was surprised once more. Not only did the city lord's mansion possess an environment rivaling that of the ancient god's domain, but the clarity of the operating principles of mana's various elements in this place surpassed even that of the secret underground room in Zero Wing City. Zero Wing City's secret underground room only managed to gain such an environment thanks to the ancient beast sculpture and the expenditure of a ton of magic crystals. Even then, the secret room could accommodate only several dozen people at a time. On the other hand, ancient rock city's city lord's mansion possessed an even better environment and could allow more than 10,000 players to train in this environment simultaneously. When Feng arrived inside the core control room, he saw a fully open set of pitch-black doors. The evil god's secret land's mana continuously flowed out of the open doors and into the city lord's mansion. The secret land itself had also undergone significant changes. Previously, the evil god's secret land prevented all outsiders from approaching. Now, there was a flight of stairs with 49 steps leading into the secret land. These steps tested players on their ability to stabilize their surroundings. The higher one climbed on this staircase, the higher the requirement would become. By the time players reached the top, they would have gained basic mastery over the various elements of mana. Another staircase from the control room's second floor led directly into the evil god's secret land. However, players needed to be at least level 150, Tier 4 to use this entry method. They also had to pay 1,000 mana stones per player to enter. In other words, there were 2 methods to enter the evil god's secret land. One method was free but required players to have basic mastery over the various elements of mana. The other method had much more lenient entry requirements, but players had to pay 1,000 mana stones. This method was a huge benefit for Tier 4 players. After all, Tier 4 players could obtain significant help in their Tier 5 promotion from a level 150 plus God mode secret land. Not to mention, monsters inside a God mode secret land were filthy rich. According to the rumors Feng had heard, the mythic monsters inside level 150 plus God mode secret lands provided at least 5 times more EXP and 3 times better loot than mythic monsters in the outside world. They were walking treasure troves. Of course, securing these walking treasure troves wouldn't be easy, either. This was because even the weakest monster inside these secret lands rivaled Refinement Realm experts in combat standards, with the more powerful ones on par with Void Realm experts. And worse, all of these monsters moved in groups. If an ordinary Tier 4 expert entered a God mode secret land by themselves, they wouldn't even know how they died. And while Tier 5 players could survive in a God mode secret land by themselves, they would still die if they came across a Tier 5 legendary monster. All legendary monsters in a God mode secret land possessed combat standards rivaling peak experts at the very minimum, as well as powerful basic attributes. The average Tier 5 player would have difficulty facing a legendary monster by themselves. Normally, raiding a legendary monster would need 3 Tier 5 players. Moreover, these 3 players needed to fill the roles of MT, healer, and damage dealer. Only with all 3 roles filled would they have a chance at killing a legendary monster. If players wish to guarantee a kill on a legendary monster, they would need to add 2 more Tier 5 damage dealers to their party formation. Feng felt a little tempted as he looked at the evil god's secret land's entrance. This was because the monsters inside level 150 plus God mode secret lands had a chance of dropping God crystals, materials essential to upgrading many fragmented legendary items, as well as Tier 5 skill and spell books, which all Tier 5 players needed to raise their combat power. However, Feng quickly calmed himself. He knew full well that he couldn't take on a level 150 plus God mode secret land by himself. Even if he brought Fire Dance and the others with him, they could, at best, kill a bunch of Tier 4 superior mythic monsters. A Tier 5 legendary monster was out of the question. Afterward, Feng spent 300,000 magic crystals to activate the control room's core magic array, which created a barrier of divine runes around ancient Rock City. The city's defensive magic array was significantly stronger than before. With the core magic array's activation, ancient Rock City woke up like a slumbering beast. The city drew all mana within a 20,000-yard radius toward itself, depleting the mana in the vicinity. Now, only Tier 3 players who had activated their mana bodies could survive in the surroundings, and Tier 4 players in the area saw their flight speed plummeting. If a Tier 5 existence attacked ancient Rock City now, they would also find the power of their attacks diminished by a significant margin. Inside the city lord's mansion, Feng was dumbfounded by the sight before him. What a powerful core magic array! Initially, he had thought to strengthen ancient Rock City's core magic array using the 12-array magic world. However, he dared not interfere with it now. This was because countless divine runes made up the core magic array. He could tell at a glance that it was no ordinary core magic array, and even the slightest of modifications could have catastrophic consequences. Meanwhile, with this core magic array, ancient Rock City's defensive standard was probably close to that of Zero Wing City, which had the protection of a world mirror. And this was when the core magic array was operating in normal mode, not at maximum capacity. After activating the core magic array, Feng contacted Fire Dance and had her begin transferring the manpower gathered in Silverwing City to ancient Rock City. In less than 20 minutes, over 200,000 Tier 3 members and over 30 Tier 4 members from Zero Wing arrived at ancient Rock City's empty streets. As an added precaution, Fire Dance also mobilized 3 Crimson Dragon flying ships, 6 Tier 4 fine gold guards, and 2 Tier 4 dark gold guards. The assembled combat power in ancient Rock City could already rival that in the various superpowers headquarters. After reading an update from her subordinate, Fire Dance asked Feng, guild leader, "We've completed the basic setup. Should we open ancient Rock City now?" "Open it," Feng replied without hesitation. "Set the entrance fee to 1 magic crystal or 40 silver coins." Only after a guild city had opened its doors to the public could it recruit NPC soldiers and strengthen its defenses at a much faster rate. Moreover, if Zero Wing wished to keep ancient Rock City operating normally, it would have to spend at least 100,000 magic crystals per day. If the guild tried to operate the city privately, it would eventually run out of magic crystals. When ancient Rock City opened, many scouts from guilds and adventurer teams flooded in. Adventurer teams that made a living from raiding the Orc capital city even entered the city in full despite the high entrance fee. The Orc capital city was a huge treasure trove. Moreover, all players raiding the Orc capital city were frontline experts in the current god's domain. Even the weakest among them possessed peak Tier 3 combat power. Currently, these players could reap a significant harvest just by farming the monsters in the orc capital city's outer and inner regions. With luck, they could even get their hands on level 150 epic equipment. Meanwhile, as Ancient Rock City was the closest guild city to the orc capital city, it was only natural these players would choose it as their base of operations even if they had to pay an exorbitant entrance fee. Over 600,000 players flooded into Ancient Rock City in less than 2 hours, and every one of these players was a Tier 3 expert. Upon entering Ancient Rock City, all of these experts were stunned by the city's splendorous view and wonderful environment. Not only could they recover from the corrosion of foreign energies extremely quickly here, but they could even store up to 2 whole levels worth of the double EXP buff just by resting in the city. The accumulation rate for the buff was even a staggering 30% per 24 hours. While 30% might not seem like much, Tier 3 players couldn't even earn 30% worth of EXP by grinding non-stop for 24 hours. Players who had reached level 140 would be considered grinding freaks if they could gain even 20% per day. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. Meanwhile, by resting on the streets of Ancient Rock City, not only could players avoid delaying their leveling progress, but they could even level up faster than normal. The effect would be even better if they rested in hotels. News regarding Ancient Rock City spread throughout the entire eastern continent. When the superpowers that were planning on attacking Ancient Rock City heard about the city's defensive standard, they gnashed their teeth and abandoned their notions. Now, they had no choice but to wait for the outer world forces to take revenge for them. While the vast number of Tier 3 experts were exclaiming over Ancient Rock City's environment, Feng brought Beast Emperor to Star Moon City's War God's Temple. Previously, because the system prevented Feng from leaving Ancient Rock City's vicinity, he could only imprison Beast Emperor temporarily. Now that he had settled Ancient Rock City's matters, he naturally couldn't spare Beast Emperor. Not to mention, because the War God's Temple abhorred the Evil God's Temple, it offered extremely generous bounties for the capture of high-ranking evil god envoys like Beast Emperor. After Feng entered the War God's Temple's lobby with Beast Emperor in tow, a level 180 senior administrator promptly approached him. "Greetings, sir. You are here to collect a bounty, right? Please follow me." The Temple Lord is currently present in the War God's Hall, the level 180, Tier 3 senior administrator said respectfully as he looked at Feng. "Okay, lead the way." Feng nodded. Chapter 2890, War God's Temple's Reward. War God's Temple, War God's Hall. In a hall enveloped by starlight, a middle-aged man wearing a white divine robe and a turquoise crown sat on a throne made entirely of 7 luminaries crystals. The man slowly opened his eyes when he sensed the arrival of Feng and the senior administrator. After reaching the middle of the hall, the senior administrator reported respectfully, "Lord Temple Lord, this person is here to claim the bounty on an evil god envoy." The robed man took a closer look at Feng and the restricted Beast Emperor upon hearing the senior administrator's words. He then nodded and said, "Administrator Roa, you may take your leave." Normally, a lofty temple lord wouldn't need to handle the bounty of an evil god envoy. However, Feng was a Tier 5 individual, an existence standing at Star Moon Kingdom's apex. Hence, even the temple lord had to treat this matter with care. Feng likewise curiously scrutinized the temple lord. Star Moon City's War God's Temple was the headquarters for the War God's Temple's branches in Star Moon Kingdom. Meanwhile, Howard Ragewind, the temple lord of this branch headquarters, also happened to be the War God's Temple's strongest combatant stationed in Star Moon Kingdom. After taking a look at Howard Ragewind, Feng had to admit that the War God's Temple deserved to be called the strongest force in God's domain. This was because even the Temple Lord of a Kingdom's branch headquarters was a level 200, Tier 4 NPC. A half-step Tier 5 NPC, to be precise. Not only did Howard Ragewind possess an incredibly high life rating, but his mastery over the various elements was also considerable. He was only a short distance from creating his Tier 5 mana body and getting promoted to Tier 5. Moreover, the staff and crown Howard Ragewind owned were both legendary items. Even an actual Tier 5 existence would struggle against him. Looking at Feng, Howard Ragewind asked, Lord Sword Saint, may I verify that evil god envoy? Certainly. Feng waved his hand. Beast Emperor's body immediately flew toward the Temple Lord. However, because Beast Emperor had forcibly logged out of the game already, his body was merely an empty shell. After Beast Emperor's soulless body arrived in front of Howard Ragewind, its restraints disappeared. Simultaneously, the magic arrays set up around the hall activated and bound Beast Emperor's body with golden chains covered with divine runes. Even if Beast Emperor were a Tier 5 player, he wouldn't be able to break these divine chains. You are amazing, Lord Sword Saint. You actually caught an evil god envoy. This is a subordinate the evil god has spent much to nurture. Now that you've captured one, the continent will be in peace for quite some time, Howard Ragewind said, his eyes glowing with joy when he finished inspecting Beast Emperor's body. The evil god was incapable of descending onto the main continent. At most, he could only plague the continent through the legacies he left on the continent. Meanwhile, people who had acquired and utilized the evil god's legacies were known as evil god envoys. Compared to evil god apostles, the capture of an evil god envoy was many times more valuable. This was because only evil god envoys could use the power of the evil god's legacies. There was a limited number of evil god legacies on the continent, so the loss of an envoy meant the disappearance of one evil god legacy. You overpraise me, Lord Temple Lord, Feng said calmly. Feng had long since known that Beast Emperor was an evil god's envoy. Otherwise, he wouldn't have visited the war god's temple in such a hurry. Afterward, Howard Ragewind chanted an incantation, and Beast Emperor's body gradually disintegrated under the power of the golden chains. When Beast Emperor's physical body disappeared, Feng saw a translucent soul appear in its place. However, under the magic array's effects, the translucent soul also dissipated quickly. The entire process lasted no more than 20 seconds. When Howard Ragewind stopped chanting, Beast Emperor's existence had been expunged from God's domain. Beast Emperor would have to start from scratch if he wished to enter God's domain again. Meanwhile, without the evil god's legacy, Beast Emperor would pose no threat to Zero Wing. He might even have problems reaching Tier 4. After Beast Emperor disappeared, Feng received a notification from the system. System, congratulations. You have captured an evil god envoy. Rewarding 100,000 War Gods Temple Merit Points, 3,000 War Gods Temple Reputation Points, 5 levels, and 50 Legacy Skill Points. System, your War Gods Temple Reputation has reached 6,700 points. Rewarding War Gods Envoy title. You will enjoy status and authority equivalent to a War Gods Temple Elder with this title. Feng was stunned when he saw the rewards. Although he had expected a generous reward, he never dreamed it would be this generous. Setting aside how many items he could exchange from the War God's treasury with 100,000 merit points, just the War God Envoy title more than justified his efforts. While the War God's temple had countless branches across God's domain, it had a limited number of elders. The status of elder exceeded even that of branch temple lords in the War God's temple. With this status, Feng could directly recommend Zero Wing be one of the top 10 rookie guilds of God's domain. Zero Wing would no longer have to go through the coming year's selection competition. Instead, it could directly participate in the competition for the 12 reserve seats. Moreover, God's domain's top 10 rookie guilds also got to enjoy a portion of the 12 reserve seats' authority, including having a guild garrison a kingdom and enjoy the worship of this kingdom. Seeing Feng in deep thought, Howard Ragewind approached him and said respectfully, Lord Sword Saint, because of your contributions, you are now the War God's Temple's envoy. If you encounter any trouble in the future or need help with something, I will be more than happy to help. That's great. Upon hearing the Temple Lord's offer, Feng asked, I wish to recommend my guild as a candidate for the top 10 rookie guilds. I also wish to have my guild garrison Starmoon Kingdom. May I know what I need to do to accomplish this? This was his first time enjoying an elder's privileges in the War God's Temple, so he had no clue how to recommend a guild become a top 10 rookie guild. Howard Ragewind was undoubtedly the perfect candidate to answer this question. This is simple. All you need to do is write a recommendation letter, and I'll pass it on to the main headquarters elders. Afterward, you just need to wait. I believe that news of your guild becoming one of the top 10 rookie guilds will spread across the continent in a few days, Lord Sword Saint, Howard Ragewind replied, smiling. Having your guild garrison Starmoon Kingdom is even easier. I am good friends with the king. Once the War God's Temple makes its announcement, the king will be more than happy to let your guild garrison Starmoon Kingdom. So long as you give your approval, your guild can become Starmoon Kingdom's representative guild on the same day. I will have to trouble you with that, then, Lord Temple Lord, Feng said joyfully. He initially thought he would face a troublesome process. The top 10 rookie guilds enjoyed extraordinary status in God's domain. Although they didn't have the authority to decide the development of an entire country, the benefits of becoming the representative guild of a country were massive. Representative guilds would receive precious resources from their respective countries upon taking the position, and these resources included 7 luminaries crystals and various legendary materials. With luck, a guild might even receive inferior divine artifact ranked materials. After writing the recommendation letter, Feng went to the temple's core treasury, a place only those at the branch temple lord status or above could enter. Sure enough, it's impossible to exchange for legendary weapons and equipment directly. Feng sighed in disappointment when he scanned the exchange list at the treasury. Although the War God's treasury offered legendary weapons and equipment for exchange, only NPCs could use these items. The weapons and equipment usable by players were limited to the fragmented legendary rank or below. Of course, the divine artifacts that cost over 200,000 merit points were the exception. However, it was practically impossible for anyone to accumulate that many points. At this point, Feng switched to browsing the treasury's materials. When he saw the list of materials, he couldn't help sighing in admiration. After all, the treasury housed over 500,000 legendary materials and 10,000 divine artifact materials. This is a divine power source. Feng was stunned when he read the description of one divine artifact ranked material. Scorching Eye, a divine artifact ranked material, an eye of flame naturally formed from a divine power source. The Scorching Eye can be merged with a person's body to improve their life rating significantly. Required merit points, 70,000. Feng had investigated divine power sources on multiple occasions. However, he never managed to find any information on them. He never thought that he would come across one in the War God's Temple. However, he gasped involuntarily when he saw how many merit points the Scorching Eye cost. The average fragmented legendary weapon only cost around 40,000 merit points, yet the Scorching Eye cost 70,000 merit points despite being only a material. For comparison, God crystals, which were also considered materials, only cost 7,000 merit points. There are 4 divine power sources in the War God's treasury, but I can afford only one with my current points. If I exchange for God crystals instead, would probably have enough to upgrade fragmented legendary equipment to legendary rank already. Feng hesitated over the Scorching Eye. There was no way he could acquire more merit points within a short period. After all, there was no second evil god envoy waiting for him to catch. Meanwhile, the Scorching Eye was the cheapest of the 4 divine power sources available for exchange. The others cost around 80,000 points. If he chose to exchange for enough God crystals to upgrade a piece of fragmented legendary equipment, he wouldn't be able to afford any divine power sources at all. Finally, Feng gritted his teeth and said, I'll exchange for the Scorching Eye and 4 God crystals. Please wait for a moment, the receptionist in front of Feng said, smiling before leaving to find the items he chose. Some time later, the Scorching Eye and 4 God crystals entered his hands. Simultaneously, the merit points he had also plummeted. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. However, Feng did not regret his decision. Based on how few divine power sources the War God's Temple owned, he could tell that these items were incredibly rare and precious. Obtaining even one divine power source in the outside world would already be close to impossible, let alone 2. God crystals, though, were a different story. While God crystals might be rare, Feng still had ways to obtain them. I wonder how much the light of two worlds will improve. Looking at the fist-sized scorching eye in his hand, Feng drew the light of two worlds. System, divine power source detected. Do you wish to let the light of two worlds absorb it? Absorb. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.